the Chinese practitioners did. They lived in little villages and you saw it. Like you go there every day, they didn't just have a bunch of spray and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, I like it. It's like a nice relaxing session. It's
Hey, Elizabeth, are you there?
Hi, good morning. How are you? Happy summer
Good.
end.
Yeah, happy end of the summer.
I won't be able to stay the whole session today, but I'm so glad we're starting again.
Okay, good. Here, we're going to try and test the sound out. Let's see. Are you still there, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I'm here. Yep, sounds good
Oh,
to me. Sound is fine.
keep talking.
Hello. Good morning. Can you hear me? Roger Wilco, testing 1, 2, 3.
We got you.
Okay.
Okay.
Hear us?
Can you hear Joel?
I can't hear Joel, no.
Yeah, I got to talk from up here.
In fact, now that you mention it, 90% of the time when Dr. Shepard makes his comments, I can't hear it at all. And it's like, darn.
Well, that would hold for everyone in the audience.
Like right now, I can't hear him, but maybe it's because I need better, I don't know. I can hear you great, but I can't hear Dr. Shepard.
Yeah, we tried having a speaker, like a speaker
Yeah.
that we can move around, but it's interesting with this program, with the GoToWebinar program, it tends to create problems so that.
Yeah, I'll have to get out here someday.
So it's easier just to use the minimal, just what's on the computer already. I found that's the best.
So if we think our
Say
time,
that again, Dr. Fiore.
Yeah,
What did you say?
What's that?
What did you say if you just use the minimum?
Yeah, if I just use my laptop for audio, for a microphone and for speakers. Well, actually we have speakers, we have outside speakers, but if we use the microphone on the computer, it works out better.
Okay.
I don't know, that's what I found.
For viewers like me or for you all when you're creating it?
What's that?
I didn't understand who should, never mind, that's all right.
If I just use my laptop to use the microphone on my laptop, that works better than using an external microphone. That's what I found.
I see. On your end, I got it.
Causes less problems with the program for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah.
Okay. Well,
okay, very good. Oh, and Elizabeth, next month will be our meeting, just as a heads up.
okay.
So I'll be sending out emails about that.
Yeah, remember the ad that I was going to put in the paper at MUHS alumni? I sent it back to you because they only allow a certain amount of text.
Okay.
So I'll resend that to you, and then you can look at it, and it has to be less text than you had approved last year.
Okay.
Less volume. But I guess that's a topic for next week, right?
Yeah, we can talk about that next week for sure. Okay. I'm going to check here and see if I can get Jeff on. Jeff, are you there?
I am, yep.
How's it going?
Going good here. You enjoying your last weekend of summer?
Don't say that.
Oh,
That sounds ominous.
Oh.
Yes, I am.
Great.
Did you have a good dog walk?
It was, it has yet to occur. He settled down.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna go out. We're gonna go out once you guys get going.
Okay. More and more people have heard about medical medium.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm surprised. Maybe it's because I'm telling everyone.
that would do it. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I already started the broadcast, so I guess all I need to do is record if we're going to record. I'm going to do my part. Maybe I'll record my part, but I think Bob. It's automatically recorded?
Yeah, I was going to say, I believe you have to turn off the recording when you don't want to record it. They changed it so it automatically records, like Zoom.
Where would I turn off the recording?
I believe you just hit let's see, if you hit,
It says this session is being recorded. Okay.
and then, yep, so just hit where it says recording.
Hmm.
Do you see the top where it says recording?
No. I see the bottom. It says this session is being recorded.
Yep. But if you, maybe you don't have your sharing panel open.
Oh, yeah,
So,
sharing.
yeah. And in there it says recording.
Not opening. The sharing panel won't open for me. I click on the little triangle, it won't open.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird. Huh.
Let me close everything else and try and open it. Yeah, it doesn't open.
Sure.
Hey.
Hey.
We have a representative from Synergy Health here today. Dr. Dunn.
Dr. Fior.
Good to see you.
Mhm.
Yeah, give me your thingy. Which thingy? Oh, this one. It's the only one. And I will leave it just on the drive. So when we eject it, it'll take all the material with you. I think it'll be okay.
Excuse me.
Photos that are classified. Okay.
If you don't want to.
Then the default setting now is that it records automatically.
Okay.
I can't, and actually I can't, I have to get into the sharing thing and I can't turn it off.
We're talking.
Yeah, so that works out.
Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as an attendee in listen-only mode.
Oh, Ian, you attended as me?
That's how you had me set in last time.
Okay, so I see I'm on here twice.
I mean, you know. Yeah.
Works for me. Elizabeth, I'm gonna mute you, okay? Just so that if you sneeze or cough or the dog barks, we won't. If you have a question though, you can raise your hand and we have someone here monitoring. She'll notice. Or if you think you'll be real quiet, I'll just leave you unmuted. Elizabeth?
Hello, what? I didn't hear you.
If you're quiet, I can leave you unmuted. If not, I can, if you think there might be the dog barking or the.
Yeah, there's too much going on. Why don't you mute it? And if I have a question, I'll raise the hand.
Okay, good. We'll do that. Perfect. So it is being recorded. It is. And Leanne, you can see my screen?
I see. I'll show you.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, we couldn't get something to work right last time. I don't remember what it was, so you just had to go on to.
There we go.
Are we ending at 1 or 1:30?
I got more right too.
Tim.
That is a good question. I think one. But
The only reason I'm asking it's because I'm doing the acupuncture, so that's your taking.
Yeah. Now that Dr. Dunn's here, who knows, you might go to 3. I don't know. You might have lots of questions.
I have to.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, how are you, Amishi?
Good morning. I'm fine. How are you?
Morning.
Hi, Mishi.
Hi, Dr. Fear.
It's early there.
It is 8. Yeah, it's 8. But I'm used to getting up early because of the
Okay.
kids and the school and everything. So not
Okay.
too bad. How's the weather there? Is it still warm? It's
The
getting
weather
cooler.
is nice. It's sunny. It's going to be 80s today. Today, I don't even think there's a cloud in the sky. Is there a cloud in the sky? I don't think so. Little puffy things, but thank God we're not in North Carolina.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they are having some tough time.
Yes. Okay, we're ready to go. We're recording.
I'm sorry.
So
Yeah.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the September Illinois Homeopathic Medical Association meeting. So we've come back after a whole long summer and a bunch of months without any homeopathy education. So it's great to be back. I'm Bob Signori, if I haven't met you yet. And actually, it's with great sadness that we have something to announce. I recently heard about the passing of a really prominent homeopathic physician from Europe and England, Dr. Peter Fisher, a renowned homeopath and physician actually to the Queen of England. Unfortunately, he actually got hit by a truck and killed instantly when he was going, they had like this thing, it was called Bicycle to Work Day in London or something like that. And, just terrible. So I would like to just begin the meeting by observing a moment of silence for the late, great Dr. Peter Fisher. All right. Does anybody have any words to say about Dr. Fisher? Francine?
I met him in 2015. He was one of the speakers
Uh-huh.
at the Homeopathic Association.
Yeah.
He did a talk there. He was very, very passionate, very articulate.
You need to speak up a little, so you,
Oh,
or you
yeah.
can step up and
I can talk.
Well, Dr. Burke basically said that he was just a very, very great educational kind of a guy, very good speaker. Yeah, he was one of the main proponents of research in homeopathy, and he was just kind of like a guiding light, and really wasn't afraid to tout homeopathy in spite of a lot of adversity in Europe and abroad.
he really was one of the people that would stand up against critics and openly debate them. How many people will do that?
So for the people on the webinar, if they didn't hear Dr. Fior, he was saying that he was one of the few scholars that would actually openly debate anybody that would say something negative about homeopathy. And he had such a good command of the research data that he was one of the few people that was uniquely qualified to do so. Yeah. All right. So oh, you got it. Okay, now I got it. So we usually do a little something to start out called interesting ideas. What do you think? So I just put a couple things together here. See what you think about this. If you have any experience with this. Has anybody seen this book? So Tim has, Francine has, not yet, so many, Dr. Don, Dr. Shepard. It's not a new book. It's a really old book, of course, because it's from a physician from long ago, Dr. Van Lippe, who Dr. Sain and many people often quote. So it's a keynotes book. And so, you know, I wasn't really looking for it, but I was just online looking at stuff on Google Books, what kind of books might help me out in my practice. And I saw a used copy of this on sale for like $11. So I think, and I think it was with $15 total with like, you know, the shipping and stuff. And I asked him, I said, what do you think? And he said, oh yeah, anything by Lippe has got to be good. So I hadn't seen the book, but I just bought it sight unseen. And I have to say that I really like it in my practice. So the book that I often have in my little consult office, so like if you've just done like a 2-hour initial homeopathic evaluation of somebody, and you're kind of like, okay, I've gotten it down to it's sepia versus natriumyr, or it's, you know, it's pulsatile or maybe phosphorus. And I know it's one of those two, but I'm having a hard time deciding. And, you know, when you have people in the waiting room, it's not like you could pull out 15 books or 15, you know, like things on the computer and look at them at your leisure. But at least I would use Alan for that. I would just look it up, you know, a couple pages on natrium, a couple pages on sepia. Okay, now I'm more confident. I'm going to do sepia. And actually, the cool thing about Alan's is that not only is it a nice little paperback and it's small, it's just a few pages and you can look through it real fast, but the other thing is you can get it for free on Google, the ebooks. So you don't have to buy it. You can just like download on your computer. So I like it. The only thing I don't like about it is it's too much of a keynotes in terms of like sometimes it'll only be like 2 pages on one remedy, and you're like, well, I already knew that, but I'm looking for just a few more things, and I don't have time to like look in one of the really, you know, giant books. So, or sometimes I'll be looking up a remedy and it isn't one of the 222 that's in there. So like, oh darn. So then you have to look it up in something else that's going to take more time. So the reason I like the Lippe's keynotes is that if you look at it, comparing the two, it's got about what 300 more pages, something like that almost. It's got like what 12, 13 more remedies. And the good thing is, like, for instance, I just said, okay, let's just look at sepia. So sepia has 4 pages and Allen's, but the sepia in Lippe, the font is a little bit smaller, plus you get more pages. So it's like 7.5 pages. So really, you're going to get almost twice as much data on each remedy. And there's a little more of a chance that you're going to find the remedy you're looking for in a really quick way. So I just think it's kind of a fun book, and for the price, you can't beat it.
It's interesting when we do Materia Medica for a project, when we go through a remedy, we start with the Materia Medica from Timothy Allen's encyclopedia, and then Herring's Guiding Symptoms. And then we go through all the other Materia Medicas, including this one, to add symptoms that aren't included yet. It's rare that a symptom that's in the other two are not already up here, or what's in here is already in the others. So he just basically took, you know, he took Allen and took Herring and whatever other Materia Medicas available, and just add, you know, just basically it's like an older version of Borke's Materia Medica, condensed.
Yeah, and that's what I like. It's condensed, so you might not have time to look through Borke's, but at least this is just kind of like the little keynotes. So the second thing is, have you heard the latest news? I got an email from, this was kind of like a blast email. You may have gotten it too, I'm not sure. From Pruvy.info, Jörg Wickman. And I remember when I started studying homeopathic medicine 11 years ago, they told us at the British Institute of Homeopathy, they said, well, you have just a little over 2,000 remedies to know. And then it was 3,000. And like a few years ago, they said it's a little bit over 4,000 remedies. And now, according to this, it's actually over 8,000. Now, if you really look at the ones that have been approved, it's more like almost 6,000. But in any case, and of course, the naysayers would say, well, yeah, well, some of them are meditation provings and dream provings. So the ones that are really good are maybe less than that, maybe 4,500 or 5,000. But even so, I mean, isn't that amazing? Just in the last year, it's like the curve is really steepening. So a lot of remedies to know, huh? Okay, so what I wanted to do today is just go over a little case that I had in the summer in my practice. And usually in a dermatology practice, we usually see a lot of chronics, you know, like eczema, psoriasis, and things like that. And of course, when we treat things chronically, we go for the chronic remedy or the constitutional remedy often, whereas this is not one of those cases. This is actually an acute case. So an acute case has a little bit of a different type of approach. And the point of presentation is the therapy. How do we get to the therapy? You know, how do we know which remedy to use? So I don't know if you can see it there. Oh, let me turn it over. Unfortunately, I did not take a photograph of the case I'm presenting today. So this is actually a photograph of an older person in his 30s who has the same acute skin, itchy, papule and plaque type of condition. So this is just for my teaching file. It looked something like that. Itchy papules and some streaky plaques. So it's a 14-year-old girl, and she comes in with a widespread, I don't mean like over the whole body, but I mean a widespread eruption, like maybe from the chest down to about this part of the torso, and for sure on the arms. Is very itchy, and it's progressively getting worse and worse. She's had it for about 10 days. So why is she coming in just now? Well, it dawned on the family that, we're taking this big summer vacation in 2 days, and we spent a lot of money on, all the hotels and all the taking time off of work and stuff like that. And if our kid is sick or if she's itchy, it's going to ruin the whole thing, and we might have to get her hospitalized. So it's sort of something we see in dermatology. Do you guys see stuff like that in the summer when people come in? It's like, we're going on a big vacation. We just spent $4,000 to go to Hawaii or a big cruise, and now somebody's sick, right? I mean, if you had like a GI thing or whatever, we just get the skin itchy things or painful things. So anyway, so the pressure's on, right? Because they want homeopathy, but they're going away in 2 days. So you want to have the safety of homeopathy, but they're asking for the quick efficacy of conventional medicine, and so it's kind of hard to deliver under stress sometimes. So, okay, so the question is, what remedy would you give her, and like what kind of questions would you ask to get there? Anyone? So she's 14. So contact dermatitis, what would you ask? What did you touch? Like,
Where'd you hike?
where have you been? Have you been hiking? What were you wearing? Do you have any crafts? Do you have any hobbies? Were you just spray painting? Were you just, like stuff like that? Good. Yeah. So no fever, thankfully. No aches and pains or anything like that. No diarrhea. No upset stomach or colicky pain. So yeah, strictly just itching. But the thing that is bothering them is not only is it itching, but it's starting to spread almost to the face. And then also when the itching gets worse, you worry about not being able to sleep, and autoexemization where it spreads through the bloodstream all over the body. And of course, you could even get secondarily infected cellulitis. So it could turn into something ugly fast.
What makes it better and what makes it worse?
Exactly. So what makes it better and what makes it worse? Extremely important, not so much in conventional medicine, but in homeopathy, the modalities, absolutely. So let's see, what did I ask? So I said, my first conventional teacher in dermatology always ask them, who'd you go to and what did they use and what didn't work? Because you'd hate to give them the same stuff that somebody else just tried and you're just wasting their time. So what have you tried so far? So what did they say? Well, we went to a dermatologist and he gave us a big prescription of halobetasol ointment. So then you ask yourself, so what's halobetasol ointment? Well, the prescription name is Ultravate ointment. Does anybody know how strong that is?
Very, very.
Yeah, so like Tim said, it's very strong. So like if you get a prescription from a dermatologist, you can have the weakest of weak 1% hydrocortisone or 0.5% over the counter, so that's really low. And then the super, super strong is the halobetasol or clobetasol. So that's like the strongest super potent you can use. So if somebody fails the strongest cortisone cream that you can get, either it's not a steroid responsive dermatosis, like maybe it's actually an infection, like it's strep or staph, and they're just throwing the wrong medicine on it, it's not working. Or if it really is a steroid responsive dermatosis like psoriasis or eczema or contact dermatitis, it must be a pretty bad one, or else if they touched something or they inhaled something or whatever, they must have done a lot of, they must be real sensitive to it because this is not doing diddly for them. So then you know right away that this is kind of a hard case. So this is not going to be your easy case where they went to Walgreens, they got 1% hydrocortisone, it was already 50% better. So you know that that's what that means. It's going to be a tough case. So what makes the itching worse? Like Dr. Marsden said, what makes it better? What makes it worse? I don't know. She's a 14-year-old kid. I don't know. It just itches. I want to get better. So you ask the parents, what do you think makes it better? What makes it worse? I don't know. Nothing's made it better yet. That's why we're here. What makes it worse? I don't know. It's just getting worse on its own. You're the doctor, right? Okay. So Dr. Marsden said, what makes it better? So I said, well, what makes it better? And she said, nothing. Nothing's making it better. The ointment didn't make it better. Time isn't making it better. Well, okay, what about cold water? No. What about going in the shower with warm or hot water? No. You know, what about sleeping? No. What about this? What about that? No, no, no. So I'm like, man, this is totally negative. I'm not getting anything out of this. And then finally she says, well, you know, come to think of it, yeah, she did feel better after the shower. How hot was it? It was pretty warm, you know, it was pretty hot. And I'm like, are you sure? Because, like, you know, sometimes people might just say something to please you and get you down the wrong path, because if it's better with heat or better with cold or better with drinking or warm fluids or, you know, whatever, that might make you give them the remedy that you think is correct, but, you know, or if somebody just says, well, yeah, it helped like a tiny bit for 5 minutes, maybe I might not use this. But she said, yeah, no, it really helped for a while. So, so for the students, of course, you know that a modality is a condition that makes a particular symptom either better or worse, or sometimes somehow modifies it. And that's important to us in homeopathy for finding the right remedies. So we know that it's been there for 10 days, it's getting worse, it's getting more itchy, linear red plaques, it's failed the strong superpotent steroid, but at least now we have at least one thing to hang our head on in terms of finding a remedy. So it gets better with hot showers. So, and not just in like acute cases, but even in chronic cases. Like if somebody says, I've never been well for like the past 10 years. Well, then of course, what do we ask as a homeopath? Well, what was going on in your life 10 years ago? Oh, nothing. Well, I mean, did your dog die? Did your wife die? You know, did your husband lose his job? Did your house burn down? No. And I said, oh yeah, I guess, yeah, I got fibromyalgia and I lost my job and I got depressed and I had to have surgery. It's like, oh, so you've never been well since something. And then, well, how did you feel? Well, you know, what did you do? And then that kind of helps us find a remedy that would go along with it. So I said, so what were you doing out 10 days ago or maybe 20 days ago or 3-4 weeks ago? She said, oh, nothing. I was just enjoying my summer vacation. And the mom's like, well, actually, you know, we were doing the science project. I mean, they're out of school, but just for fun of it, they were some of their friends were giving out monarch butterfly caterpillars, right? And I don't know much about caterpillars, but so it's amazing what you could learn from your patients. So I'm like, well, what'd you do with it? And she said, well, oh yeah, you know, they're in the caterpillar stage, and the only thing they eat are these milkweed leaves. So we had to go out into the forest reserve next to our house and find a milkweed. And so I looked it up. This is what a milkweed looks like. It's kind of pretty that time of year and everything. And did anybody ever read to their kids that little book about the hungry caterpillar? I mean, it's kind of like a book for little kids. Well, they really are hungry, but instead of eating the stuff they said in the book, like junk food, what they eat is like, I mean, like the caterpillar is small, but this leaf is like about 6 inches. It's like really huge. And I guess they go through a lot of them. Say they get fresh ones every day. They have 3 caterpillars. So they go out, and the mother and the daughter, like a nice little project, they're out there picking the leaves, right? And the mother just said, yeah, pick this one. And then, well, I guess after, you know, about 4 or 5 days, it was kind of a burdensome task. So the mother said, well, you know where that bush is, you know, just go pick it, right? And so she sends the kid out. And then, so she's picking it and everything's just fine. And the only thing is, she picked some of these, but she picked some of these too. And where she lives, apparently these leaves are like really big. They're like about 6 inches. So it was like right next to this plant. And it looks sort of like milkweed if you look at it from the micro kind of, you know, if you look at the big picture, it actually looked like this. So I mean, it was huge. It was huge poison ivy. And unfortunately, she thought they were leaves, but like on the milkweed, they're leaflets. And there's like leaves of 3, and the central one has a really long stem for poison ivy, almost like a little nubby stem over there. So like Homer Simpson would say, this is kind of like a oh moment, you know, it's like, oh no, but it's too late. Okay, so here's a good dermatology quiz question. So if you have a oh moment and you're like, oh, I just pulled a weed, but it wasn't a weed, it was poison ivy. How many minutes, this is like a board question, how many minutes does it take for by the time you get it on your skin, the poison ivy, till the time your Langerhans cells and everything gobble up the antigen and start presenting it? And it's kind of like you're downhill after that and there's no going back. So if you're gonna wash it off or use like, you know, some kind of a solvent or something like that, how many minutes do you have of a window before you're too late and you're cooked? Okay, so the board question would be A, 1 minute, B, 5 to 10 minutes, C, a half hour, D, 1 to 2 hours, E, like, you know, 6 hours. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes. Well, it's between about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how allergic the person is and how many times they've been sensitive, like had cases of it. So what this means is, people always say, well, go buy Ivy Block, and put that stuff on. But if you don't have it, at least you could buy Technu. You go to Walgreens, and if you're camping, you stick it in your car. So when you get back, you can like degrease yourself with like your paper towels. But if you really believe the data, you don't really have time, because if you're hiking for 3 or 4 hours and then you come back and you degrease yourself, well, heck, that's way over 5 to 10 minutes. So time is of the essence. So what you can do is clay absorbs urushiol, which is the oil of poison ivy, or poison sumac. It's all the same basically. So if you're in an area where they have kind of clay soil, kind of like in the Midwest here, we have like a lot of clay. So if there's like dry dirt, you can actually just get clean dry dirt and go like that, and it kind of dirties you up, but it absorbs the urushiol. Soap is sort of somewhat helpful. So if you have soap and you have like a water from the canteen or whatever, the bottle, then that can help somewhat. I mean, even if worse came to worse, I would probably just find some clean grass without any poison ivy on it, and maybe wipe myself on that, or sand or whatever you can. Hopefully, it should help somewhat. But yeah, so it's basically just a few minutes, and then after that, then your immune system starts running with the ball. Okay, so let's get a little academic. Let's kind of sit back here. Let's say you're sitting for your DHT homeopathic board exams, or let's say you're sitting for your CCH, or maybe you're just here at National and you're taking your homeopathic test. And the test says, itching or pruritus from which of the following homeopathic remedies improves, the patient's itching improves with hot baths, or hot showers, or sticking your arm or whatever under a really hot faucet? Is it Apis mellifica, the honeybee? Is it Anacardium orientale, the marking nut? Is it Rhus toxicodendron? Is it Rhus diversaloba? Or is it B and C, which would be Anacardium orientale and Rhus toxicodendron? Think about that for a couple seconds. Ask yourself, well, what are the modalities of these guys? If you got stung by a bee, what would you do and what would feel better? So what do you think? Anyway. Okay, so one vote for Rhus tox. So that's one.
Yeah, at least Rhus tox.
Dr. Marsden and Dr. Fior, 3. I'm sorry? Yes, it's in the same family. It has urushiol and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. So Dr. Dunn says, keep in mind, even if everybody's saying this one, this is really in the same ballpark. So very good. Who else? C, Rhus tox. Okay, so we got what, 1, 2, 3, or 4 votes for Rhus tox. 1 maybe for Anacardium. E, so B and C, that's a good choice. It's a multiple choice test, so you can't get dinged, unless you don't answer it. It's okay to guess. We do it all the time. What do you think, Adrian?
I would guess E. I don't know anything about the remedy, but
That's a very safe bet. Good. All right. Anybody else? Speak now. Remember, this patient's in your waiting room. She's not going to leave until you give them the right remedy. Okay. So if you think about it, so the answer would be B and C would be both correct. So Rhus, I'll say B and C, Anacardium, and also Rhus tox. So think about it. If you think about what happens, like if you got stung by the bee, or what would make it feel better, that kind of helps you remember the modalities and stuff. In general, Apis, if you got stung by a bee and it's really stinging and burning, it's really hot, you probably wouldn't want to put hot stuff on it, because you would probably want to put an ice pack on it, right? I mean, if you got bitten by a wasp or a bee. So in general, Apis does get better with cool things. It doesn't really get better with hot things usually.
It's actually worse with you.
Right. So that would be a pretty easy one to kind of cross off. If you're not really sure what the answer, at least you can cross that one off. So then it's kind of like, well, Anacardium is in the same kind of family. Rhus tox and Rhus diversaloba, that's California poison oak. But the cool thing is, Rhus diversaloba is one of the few ones that gets better with cold water. So you can, if you knew that, then you could cross that off. So then you know the correct answer is either that one, or that one. And the reason why this is kind of a tricky question is because if you look it up, well, for sure, everybody knows with Rhus tox, if you have a Rhus tox arthritis in your back and it's the rusty gait and it feels bad in the morning, but then you kind of limber up a little bit, and a little bit of motion, then you're kind of feeling better. And you put like a warm heating pad on it, you go in a hot shower, take a shower, and you're like, oh, okay, I can do this. So it's definitely better with heat. So you know that it's got to be at least this one. The question is, what about anacardium? Well, if you look it up, anacardium is the itching of the skin is definitely better with hot baths. But when I looked it up just this morning in Berkey, it actually says, let's see, I think anacardium. Even though it's listed and all the poison ivy people know about, anacardium and Rhus tox are the two biggies for warmth, getting better with the itching. It says here, modalities worse. So this is, I'm quoting anacardium, Oriental. Intense itching of the skin, eczema, mental irritability, poison, oak, that kind of stuff. But then it says modalities worse with application of hot water. So the trouble is, if you look in some materia medicas, most of them say the anacardium is just like Rhus tox. It's better, the itching is better with hot shower. But if you look in some of them, it actually can be better or worse. So sometimes I don't like those kind of remedies where it could get better with hot water, it could get worse. You're kind of like, where do I stand? In fact, I looked it up in Joel Christ's books, nice book on poison ivy, and he said that it's definitely better with heat, but it's one of the remedies that also can be worse with heat too. So anyway, you could argue that, well, then since that's kind of iffy, really, this is the only answer. But I think more often than not, I think it's better with heat. So that's why I stuck it in there. But yes.
When I've given anacardium for ivy or some eruption, I've usually found what's led me there is more the person's temperament is kind of really irritable.
Irritable, cranky, cursing a lot.
Cursing. That's not necessarily cursing, but just irritable.
Oh, that's a good tip. So for the people on the webinar, Dr. Fuhr is saying what really led him to anacardium for poison ivy, poison oak cases, and he said if the person tends to really be in an irritable, cranky kind of mood. Dr. Shepard?
They have lack of self-confidence and approval.
Aha.
Or another author says the devil on one shoulder and on the other shoulder. They're revengeful. They don't go after people that are stronger than them. The physical symptom has a plug. Constipation has a plug. Stomach has a plug. So the skin symptom is misleading because it's not one of the main factors.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say they go into the hot shower and it feels good, and then when the heat wears off, then they feel worse again.
Yeah.
So that's why it can be both.
Yes. Yeah, so Dr. Shepard was saying that with anacardium, it necessarily isn't really the skin symptom that really leads you to anacardium for treating them. It's more like Dr. Fuhr said, like they're irritable, but Dr. Shepard said they're cruel, they're revengeful. So I always kind of wondered what they meant by having an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other. I always thought it was kind of like dualism, like, I want to be good, but I have urge to do bad. But Dr. Shepard's saying they're more like, cruel, revengeful. That's a good clarification.
Mean to things they can take advantage of.
Like mean to a pet or mean to somebody weaker than them. Almost like a podium could be, kind of. Okay. The reason, oh yes, Dr. Dunn.
Yeah, I remember having a acute case similar to yours a couple days back when I was actually visiting out of town. And they said about me, but I was debating the same too.
Yeah.
And this person, the thing that stood out for anacardium to me was this person was struggling mightily with the results of this particular rash and bullets and weakness and everything. As regards the decision to go into the forest or into the palmetto grove and some live oaks and things like that against his better judgment, his higher self. I
Ah,
just sat there and listened and talked about the higher self and waited. And it just kept coming back, and kept coming back, and kept coming back. And so there was this struggle.
oh,
I didn't see it so much angel and devil, but I guess maybe it was the higher self versus a rational self, but it was extremely angry about
oh,
it. Very angry. Angry with himself.
oh.
So I thought, let's go with that accordion.
And how did it perform, the remedy?
It exacerbated the situation immediately, and then cleared. And I said, stay away from your topical.
Very interesting.
But it took about 3 days, but it cleared up.
So they're kind of a struggle in their mind between like, should I do this, shouldn't I? And then really kind of like feeling guilty over choosing the worst part and really beating themselves up and knowing
about the struggle.
Interesting.
Even as walking on the path, he said, but he was also very easily distracted, so he wandered off path, brushed up again, something. And that was the struggle. And as we went further into it, we talked a little bit more about his struggles.
Interesting.
Just so you know that little story, you would try to interpret it and repertorize it, there's a rubric antagonism with yourself.
Oh, antagonism with yourself.
Yeah, there's 20 remedies in the recording, and this rubric is the only grade.
Oh.
And the person was taking topical steroids. Mm-hmm. So that might be why the aggravation is that.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
If you say to stop it,
that's why I grew up.
Well, that's true with
better so quickly.
that's true with chronic steroid usage, but I'm not sure that would be true of just 5 days worth or something like that. But,
I mean, it was a 1% or 2%. Yeah, it was up.
Depends on
but it was very sensitive. Very sensitive. This sort of mental, emotional, spiritual struggle.
Yeah.
That's a tuned nervous system.
So, for Dr. Dunn, what 30C or 200 or 12? 1M.
I had him swirl it around in water and bump it up.
So let's see, have I summarized Dr. Dunn's for the people on the webinar yet? So Dr. Dunn basically was saying that he had a patient with the poison ivy kind of a thing. And the main reason he got to anacardium was because they had kind of a mental struggle between, should I go to the forest and have fun and see the palmettos, but I might get the poison ivy, or shouldn't I? And then he came out, he was itching, and then he was feeling guilty and bad because I didn't listen to myself, and look what happened. So that's very interesting.
Of course, it's a psychotic.
So the trouble was that day that I saw that patient, wouldn't you know it, I didn't have my computer with me. So normally I would have looked in Schroyen's repertoire, but I didn't have it. So I had to kind of just go by what I had in my mind from Dr. Kreisberg's book about the differential of remedies for poison ivy. But let's just say you're at your office and you really did have your Schroyen's or whatever. Let's look it up. So you asked your computer, so what remedies could be helpful in treating this poison oak, poison ivy case? So like Dr. Shepard taught me a long time ago, you can look up under skin eruptions. Ruse poisoning is the old way of saying, like poison ivy dermatitis. And so it's under R for ruse poisoning. And then these are 43 useful remedies that at least in some cases, people have gotten better by using them. The biggies would be anacardium, croton, tig, ruse diversalosa. That's kind of interesting because in Kreisberg's book, he actually mentions ruse tox as much of a bigger remedy of a polycrest for poison ivy versus ruse diversalosa is kind of like the seldom used. But anyway, you can see that it was put in the boldface here. So Schroyen's must feel that that's pretty big. So that's nice, but you kind of want to find out, okay, that's true of everybody with poison ivy or poison oak, but let's get more, not generalized, let's get more specific. What's characteristic, like Hahnemann would say, what's characteristic of this patient? Everybody gets itching and blisters, but what's kind of unique about this young lady as opposed to other people? So the main characteristic thing was she really got better with warmth. Whereas in my experience in 26 years of seeing people, not homeopathically, but at least dermatologically, most people, when they get in the hot shower, 9 out of 10 of them say, oh man, that hot shower made it worse.
I can't shower, or maybe I got to cool it down a little bit, but I can't, it just made it worse. Are you kidding me? Whereas when somebody says it made it better, that's kind of nice, because that's that characteristic. It's not characteristic of everybody's poison ivy, but it's characteristic of that one or two people. And so that's what you kind of glom onto and use that. So you ask your computer, which of these remedy types get better with warmth or heat? Well, there's a couple ways to look at it. The kind of general ways, you go to generals, you look under warm, and you say warmth ameliorates. I mean, that's one way, but even better would be, how about warm applications? Now, what do you guys think, Dr. Shepard, Dr. Fleur, Dr. Dunn? When they say warm applications, are they talking like warm blankets? Are they talking hot water bottles? Or could that actually be like a warm, wet compress? I mean, or all of the above? I've never really gotten clarification. So it could be warm water compresses on cloth. So it could be, it's kind of like general. Okay.
And like you have down below, if you want to be more inclusive, you can say warm shower, hot bath, warm bath. Exactly. So at least you could stick this in your little repertorization. But why not get even more specific? Well, yeah, it's not a warm towel. It's not like a warm, blanket or a warm water bottle. It's actually warm bathing. Now, I'm assuming back in the 1800s, they didn't have like nice hot showers like we did. So I imagine bathing was more common back then than showers, right? Because I couldn't find hot shower anywhere in my repertoire. So I guess, yes, I'm.
Just one little note about looking under generalities for modality. That warmth ameliorates, however, it doesn't tell you it ameliorates what.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
So you either have to go to reference works to, if it's a specific remedy, it's good as a catch-all.
Right.
But it doesn't tell you, because warmth ameliorates what? Headache, it ameliorates
your back pain. Sure.
It ameliorates your sore throat. It doesn't tell you. So you have to really
get more specific to the patient. Exactly. So what Dr. Burke is saying, well, this is good, this is better because it ameliorates with warm applications, but why not get even more specific? How about warm showers or warm baths? Well then, so that's where we go here. So bathing ameliorates, or basically, so it's under general warm bathing, so that's good. Warm bathing ameliorates. You got Rhus tox in there, radium bromatum, a few other things here. But why not use hot bath? Because the person said, and it's not uncommon. I mean, it's uncommon for people to say that the warmth makes their itching better. But of that subset of poison ivy patients, the people that really say, I'm telling you, doc, my itching was so bad I couldn't sleep for the past 7 days. The only thing that made it better was I got into the hot shower. I had no cold water. I put it on. I was almost scalding myself. I've had many people tell me this, but this was back before I wasn't doing homeopathy. So I was like, well, that's nice, but it just means you have a bad case, but it didn't help me any. But now I'm like, man, that's pure gold. So they're like, and people say that. I was scalding myself, but I slept for 4 hours for the first time in 7 days. And then the itching came back. So that's like a +4. That's not like, yeah, I think it helped a little bit. I mean, that's what really would help me to use this one, would be general warm bathing, hot bathing. Okay, now we're talking. So hot, what are the ones that get better with hot anacardium? Rhus tox, these, I'm circling the ones that are kind of known for being good poison ivy treatments, as in Christ's book. But I mean, if you knew that patient was a tried and true arsenicum album patient, and they always get better in their back pain and their worse after midnight stuff gets better, and their GI symptoms, and they're worrying about health, and if this is an acute, and they're still in an arsenicum type of a picture, they haven't morphed into a sulfur, or they haven't morphed into something else. If they haven't changed their temperature and their energy and their sleep, and everything is still jiving with arsenicum, well, why not use their constitutional treatment? Then I would probably say, well, I know they're on arsenicum and it feels better with heat, and they're normally better chronically in heat. I would probably try arsenicum first. But at least, if you have the advantage of knowing what their constitutional remedy was, or like if you knew that patient's a silica and they always have this sweaty, stinky feet, and the like, you might just try that. What do you think, Dr. Shepard? Would you go, if they were still in their chronic remedy state, would you give them a dose of that, wait and see, and then do a more lesional approach? Or would you just go straight to the lesional approach and maybe wait on the constitutional? So you would do lesional first. How about you, Dr. Fiore?
Well, it depends on the patient and the time you have, and if you know their chronic remedy is a remedy that might be useful, try it first. And I usually have my patients do that on their own. So
Okay.
probably already said, I tried it.
They already tried it.
You have to
Okay.
do the lesion.
Well, and of course, if the lesional treatment doesn't work and they're still in their chronic remedy state also, well, then I guess you could try that. So at least it just gives you a plan B. If they call you up the next day and they're like, Doc, I'm worse, at least you kind of know you got something else to fall back on.
So contact dermatitis is, I'd say, often and dissimilar to those. Often. What percent? Like 80%? Yeah. So most often.
So if it's a dissimilar disease, we probably won't be going for the chronic remedy. We're probably going for the lesional. Okay, so that
But
makes
if the
sense.
person's a chronic sulfur and the lesion is worse with warmth and better with cold, they might need sulfur.
That's the best of both worlds if you can combine both. So like Francine said, but let's get even more specific. So what you really want to know is, look, I don't care if your back pain gets better with the hot shower. What happened to your poison ivy? And so what can we do closer to approximate that? Well, this is the best I could find. Skin. We want to know, is the itching getting better with the hot shower? Well, we couldn't find hot shower, but itching, skin itching, warm bathing ameliorates. So this is wonderful. So anacardium, arsenicum album again, petroleum, rus venenata, which is poison sumac, by the way, and rumex crispus, which is known for like being a cough remedy, etc. But if a person said, I was using a scalding hot shower and it really helped, then this is also good. Skin itching, warm bathing ameliorates, hot bathing ameliorates. Once again, anacardium, once again, rus venenata, but also rus tox now. But if they happen to be a kali sulf constitution or a silica, that's good there, and even syphilinum. So like, I guess if the itching was worse at night, maybe that would help. But in my experience, everybody's itching is worse at night if they have poison ivy. So I'm not really sure. There'd have to be other things to lead towards syphilinum. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to only use one of these remedies. I mean, your patient is a unique person, and it could be that it could be in one of the ones that's in here that isn't in there. So there's more ways of looking at it. But anyway, so the main thing was we're trying to get more characteristic of that little individual patient that's in your room and not of everybody's poison ivy. So these are more specific to our individual patient. It's more characteristic of her unique way of manifesting it. So like I said, I didn't even have a computer with me, but if I did, I would have thrown them all together and hit click. And this is kind of what stratifies right here. So then now what remedy would you want to use? Is it still rus tox number one? Or now just remember, just because you hit a button and the number one here, it doesn't always mean that that's always the one. It's just kind of like, this is kind of a good differential to think of. Now, if the person said, yeah, and you know what, 3 days ago, that's all over my vaginal area. Oh, and it's itching like crazy. Croton tig, of course, Massimo Mangialavori, when he teaches Croton tiglium, he says the way our students remember it, Croton tig, scrotum tig, because men, women, doesn't matter the sex, but you have really itchy rashes in the private area and maybe have some GI symptoms, like watery diarrhea, gushing out spurts, whatever. But so this patient fortunately didn't have anything below the midriff area. But I mean, that would be something to think of. The reason why I circled it and also rus, which rus was
And Ruscanata.
yeah, I circled them in red just because those are some of the biggie poison ivy polycrest in the Joel Kreisberg book that he says, it doesn't mean you have to use the top 5, but at least be aware of what the top 5 are. And if you're giving something that isn't in the top 5, just make sure that you've ruled out those 5 and that it really isn't those cases. So that's kind of his approach. So what did I get? Well, yeah, I gave rus tox just like most of you would have. But we only had 2 days to start getting better, and she was going to do vacation. So I went for the big guns. I gave her 10M. So 2 pills every day, and then also putting it in water, and then they could actually take sips of it. As I talked to her, they were lazy and they didn't put it in water, so they just did 2 pills every day. And there was no aggravation whatsoever. But the funny thing was, within the first few hours, they reported that the symptom of itching was better. Did it look any better? Well, heck no. It's going to take 3 weeks for the rash, 4 weeks maybe for the rash to go away, for the plaques and stuff to go away. But at least she was feeling better, and that's important if you're going on vacation pretty soon. Now,
if she said, give me a shot of Kenalog, give me prednisone, because, you know, I'm not going to dink around with homeopathy, give me the big guns, give me what it takes, I would say, okay. So I would have given her a shot of Kenalog, like maybe 30 milligrams or 40, or maybe prednisone, 1 milligram per kilogram tapered over, 14 days. How do you know if it's working? Well, first, the itching gets better, but secondly, you've arrested it, because you know what's going to happen. First, it's itchy macules, then it's itchy papules, then it's vesicles, so blisters, and then it's going to get oozy and stuff like that. So you know that if it was a homeopathic remedy, or if it was Kenalog shot, or whatever you're giving them, you know you arrested it if all of a sudden everything stops in the pre-blistering phase. She never got a single blister, not one. So she did as good with a homeopathic lesion approach prescribing that she didn't need prednisone, and it worked just as good. And I remember, like, about 11 years ago when I talked to Dr. Ming-T Lin, when I was first learning about homeopathy from him, and I said, come on, are you telling me that homeopathic medicine works as good as prednisone? I mean, nothing works as good as prednisone. I mean, it's bad for you. You could die from it. It could give you diabetes and broken bones. But I've never seen anything clear poison ivy up faster than, or as fast as prednisone. And he said, yeah, it does. But it's not like prednisone where you give it to everybody and they get better. You have to really know what you're doing. You have to get focused. If you really, like Dr. Mazen said, if you really match the modalities, then there's a chance it could work just as good as the big guns in conventional medicine, which in this case it actually did. And I said, well, so when did the itching stop? And she said the itching totally stopped within the first 4 days. So what I've learned is that it's important to tell people your rash is not going to look a whole lot better in 4 days. In fact, it's going to look pretty nasty maybe for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Sometimes even when you put them on prednisone and Kenalog systemic steroid shots, sometimes it still takes about 3 weeks for the rash to totally go away. So you have to tell them, because otherwise they're going to call you the next day. They're going to say, oh, my itching's great, but I'm still getting a few new spots and it still looks terrible. Well, you have to prep them. Look, this is going to take 3 weeks to go away, whether I give you a shot of steroid or whether I give you homeopathic. The main thing is, are they flattening, and what's the itch doing? If the itching is way better, who cares what it looks like? You know you're okay. If you arrested it, it's not going into the blistering phase, you're okay. But you have to tell them that. Otherwise, they're going to go to the urgent care and say, I want prednisone because the stuff didn't work. The rash is still here. So in her case, she had the rash for 10 days. So she had the rash when I saw her for a week and a half. So a week and a half, and so that's like 4 weeks. So it took her 4 weeks for the rash to go away completely. So when I heard, so basically she's taking 2 pills every day. Now, honestly, it would have been nice if she only took 2 pills times 1. It's possible those first 2 pills would have worked so good that she didn't even need any more pills, but we'll never know because she was taking 2 every day. After 4 days, she was doing so good, the itching was totally gone. She stopped the pills on her own for like the past 5 days. So when I spoke to her on the phone at day 9, I said, so how's it going? She's like, oh, it looks terrible, but it looks not any worse than it was when I first saw you. It kind of arrested it. Got a few new spots down my arm, but otherwise, down my chest, but otherwise it feels great. So I was like, well, maybe you should take a few more days of it. So she took 2 days more of 2 pills in the morning, and then she stopped it. But in retrospect, she probably didn't need those 2 pills, and then she stopped on her own again. And then she was fine. I mean, so yes, when she was on vacation, it did look a little funny, but she didn't care because it wasn't itching. So the amazing thing is, look at the cost. I mean, she only had, how many pills was that? 2 times 4, so like 12 pills. I mean, 1 bottle is maybe what, $8 or something like that. So how much is like 12 pills? I mean, it's like pennies. So the cool thing is, it's very cheap. You think it's any safer than prednisone or Kenalog systemic steroids? Yeah, I think so too. So what did the patients think about it? Well, for sure. Because she failed Ultravate, the strongest of topical steroids possible, and it wasn't even helping much. So obviously, without her homeopathic treatment, for sure she would have required systemic steroids. With all the possibilities of side effects, and even menstrual, can deregulate your cycle and stuff like that. So I always tell people that don't know about homeopathic medicine in this case is a steroid-sparing agent. Like if you're a rheumatologist, they put people on Plaquenil and Enbrel and stuff like that because you want to get them off the steroids. If we have people for bullous pemphigoid and they're on steroids, you want to get them off. when you first think of putting somebody on steroids, the first thing they tell you is you better start thinking about how to get them off of it. So you need a plan B. So this was our plan B. Now, in this case, not in every case, but in this case, it worked exactly just as good as systemic steroids. However, like Dr. Ming-T Lin always said, you better really closely match it the best you can in terms of their modalities and stuff like that. So for instance, is the itching better with hot showers? Is it better with cold applications, you know, or whatever? And of course, the one thing the patient liked was, the only thing she really hated about the super potent steroid was that it was really greasy. So the cool thing was she didn't use any topical anything. She wasn't doing soaps, she wasn't doing ointments or creams. So at least I think you get better compliance when you don't have to give people ointments and stuff like that they don't like the way it feels. So I was referring to the book that Dr. Fior told me about when I was with him a bunch of years ago. Does anybody have this book? Joel Kreisberg, he's a DC and homeopath, and the foreword's by Bill Gray, who's a noted homeopath. I never knew about this book. In fact, it's kind of like a booklet. It's like a pamphlet about maybe 1/8 of an inch thick. It's well worth it. I mean, and so when Tim said, "Hey, you're a dermatologist, you better buy this book. You know, you should read it. You know, it might help you." I was like, "Oh, I don't know." I was kind of reluctant because in the book sometimes, like they say, when they say pustule, he really means vesicle. You know, and so his terminology wasn't the same as what we use in dermatology. So at first I was kind of like, I don't know. But eventually when I got over that, I mean, it's pure gold. I mean, not everything in it, but there's a few things that have really helped me immensely. So I was able to treat this case, even though I didn't have my computer with me, because I read this guy's book. If I didn't read his book, then I would have been stuck. You know, I mean, I wouldn't know which ones. Now, if you want to buy the book, I would recommend it. If you're cheap and you don't want to buy the book, you don't feel like reading it. Okay, let's cut to the chase. This is the most useful part in the whole book. What page is it on? I think whatever it says there.
Page 11.
Page 11. This is the most important thing. And he even says, I quote, "The most useful modality by far in treating poison ivy, oak, and sumac patients is whether it's better or worse in hot water." Now, of course, if you read his book, there's a whole sheet this long that has, you know, like these 28 remedies, and this is better with this, and this is better with that. But he said, in his experience, that's the most important thing. So even if you're like, you know, on vacation and you don't have your computer with you, at least that's ask him, what does it do? Now, the only thing is, he actually says whether the rash is better with or worse hot water, or whether the pain. Well, in 26 years of dermatology, I've never had a poison ivy patient who said it hurts. I mean, maybe it hurts after they scratch, but if it hurts, when you tap it and it hurts like heck, you better be making sure that you're treating them for cellulitis, because in my experience, contact dermatitis itches like crazy, but it doesn't really hurt. And they always said, like if you're in the emergency room or something, or if you're in your office and somebody says, I think I have eczema, and then the mother says, no, I think it's an infection, I think it's cellulitis. Well, a lot of doctors say, well, okay, well, I don't know the difference, so let me give you the antibiotic by mouth, and let me give you the steroid ointment, and that'll cover both, right? Well, number one, if they have acute cellulitis, erysipelas, they should have a fever. And the second thing is they are tender. Now, you don't ask them, does it hurt? Because they'll say, yeah, it hurts when I scratch. But you have to percuss like you're percussing somebody's belly or lung. If you're tapping and they're like, don't do that, that's tender. That means it's probably cellulitis, and either you better be good at homeopathy and find the right remedy to treat their bacterial infection, or you could put them on antibiotics or something like that. So I'm not sure that really helps me, because I don't really see pain in poison ivy. And then we already talked about the rash is going to look crummy for the next 3 weeks. So I'm not really sure. You can ask the person, does hot water make your rash better? But I think what he's referring to is it the itching better? At least that's what I take from it. So this is the second most important thing in the book. He says, look, your patient is unique. It might be one of those 43 remedies one of the rare ones you've never even seen before. It might not even be in that 43. It might be in that, 100 of the top most useful remedies. But at least whatever you're going to prescribe, at least you should make sure that it's not one of these first 5. So if you really think that they need Ryonia, at least you want to know what does the water do with it? Is it better than acetate, maybe Roustach on cardium? But if it's really in the genital area, you have to rule out Croton TIG. Sulfur people, like Tim said, in general, heat makes them worse. And Scratching, I think Hahnemann, said scratching is voluptuous. It feels so good to scratch if you're a sulfur, voluptuous. It feels good. But the trouble is, it feels so good that sulfurs tend to scratch till they bleed. Sulfurs tend to have dry eruptions. You know, not all poison ivy cases have weepy, oozy. Now, if they do, you have to rule out, I got to make sure this isn't a graphites. Glutinous means very sticky. So like if you have like weeping, and if the patient touches it and it's like sticky, you might think graphites. If they happen to be constipated, if they're obese, they're kind of, you know, like lazy to hard work. If it's in the body folds, if they're chilly and obese, and they really are, graphites kind of a habitus, well then, you know, maybe you shouldn't give them bryonia or whatever you're thinking. Maybe you should think about that. Even though Rus diversilova is kind of a small remedy, if it gets better with cold water, so that's another differential. No, doc, the heat didn't make it better, but boy, when I stuck it under the ice, you know, ice cold tap water or the well water, boy, did that feel good. Well, the biggie that Joel Kreisberg talks about, of course, is Rus diversilova, California poison oak, but Amy Rothenberg published a case a few years ago in the National Center Homeopathy Today, and she just kind of gave a quick synopsis of it. And she said, the reason why I gave the person, it was either Ledum or Apis. The main thing was the poison ivy itching got so much better with ice cold water. And then I forget what made her pick Ledum over Apis or vice versa. But at least, I mean, those are good modalities too. So in the book, on the following page, he says, okay, well, these are, by the way, he calls these are his top 5 poison ivy polycrests, because those are the ones that he keeps using over and over. And this is in the order. I don't know if you can see that. It says first. By far and away, Rus tox is his number one that he, not that he wants to find that remedy, but it's the one that seems to be working the most in his cases. He said his absolute second most popular, and where does he practice? Is he in West Coast, like San Francisco or something?
No, he's East Coast. He used to be in New York. Yeah,
East Coast.
For a while.
Okay.
So,
So, you know, keep in mind, I mean, you know, there might be different strains of oak and ivy, and maybe what works for him doesn't work for us in the Midwest. But anyway, he said, oh, by far and away, number 2. It's almost right there by Rus tox. And the third most successful is like Dr. Dunn's case, Anacardium oriental. And then, but sulfur is like, and graphites are like in there. Sulfur and graphites are still more common than a bunch of other these guys. But if you rule them out and it doesn't fit, then he said, I find myself, or sometimes he may think one of those top 5 works, and they come back a couple of days and they say, doc, I'm getting worse, it's not helping in the least. Then he says, okay, maybe it's one of the other of the top 5s, and if he's sure it isn't, then he starts looking down these. He says that this is his 6 through 11 top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 next common ones. Oh, by the way, sepias in general feel better with warm things, and so do bryonias, I think. So, well, actually here it says worse with warmth, but I remember looking it up. Under General's warm applications ameliorate, bryonia and sepia were there. So if they tend to be like bryonia or sepia patients, you can consider them. Has anybody had an Anagallis patient, either for a poison ivy or otherwise? I never have. Scarlet Pimpernel, I think it is. The one, Chris, you know, so many people have itching and blisters with poison ivy and skin rashes. That's nothing big. But I suppose if, despite the fact they had a terrible, terrible rash, if they were just thinking everything is just hilarious and exhilarated, which you shouldn't be feeling when you're suffering from poison ivy, I suppose, just like Dr. Dunn said, you know, the guy was struggling between the two things. That was like, ooh, what about anacardium? Well, you might say, why is this guy thinking everything's funny? You know, anacardium would be cursing the situation, and they're like, oh, this is just hilarious.
The opposite, it's an anti-anacardium.
Yes, like anti-anacardium, exactly. If it's better with cold, like, you know, Apis, Ledum, but also like Rus diversilova, and that I confirmed last night, J.H. Clark definitely says for sure, even though I'm not sure if it was in some of the repertoires. Apis, we talked about agaricus. Everybody thinks of agaricus for frostbite, and, you know, like worse with cold damage and stuff like that. But I've never used agaricus for like a contact derm. Has anybody? Has it ever fit any of your patients? Agaricus.
Frostbite for contact frostbite.
I guess if it was burning like frostbite, the poison ivy was burning and itching, and you know the acral places, you know, you get frostbite on, you know, like ears and stuff like that, nose, the cold areas, fingertips and toes. So I suppose if you only had poison ivy in those areas and they were saying, hey, it really burns and stings.
I remember a case of the therapist I saw presented that it was a neurologic case, but it was like the pain was like ice cold needles.
Oops. Ice cold needles.
Yeah, ice cold needles.
Oh.
Maybe the itching could be something somewhat cold and stitching.
So to repeat for the webinar people, so Dr. Fuhr had a case of agaricus, maybe not poison ivy, but agaricus, and it was because stinging like needles was the keynote. I just want to highlight a few that weren't on his top 5 list, but also not on the second tier of remedies. He does talk about rus venenata and a few other remedies, and he says, in your whole life as a person treating poison ivy, you'll see the first 5 all the time, the second 6 or 7 every now and then. And he said, this following third category, you might only once in your life treat somebody with one of those. They're kind of small remedies, but nice to know about them. So rus venenata is made from poison sumac. So I suppose if you had poison ivy and the mind was like really sad about everything, really gloomy, and of course this is not specific because lots of poison ivy people, their eyes are nearly closed and stuff like that. Has anybody seen a poison ivy case that had diarrhea? I mean, because croton tig and rus venenata, like a lot of them have like watery stools and stuff like that, but I've never seen a contact derm patient with that. Have you guys? I suppose if you did, that might say, okay, especially if it's relieved by hot water, but they're having like a bad diarrhea. So I guess we have to, oh, this is interesting. So what if your patient has contact dermatitis and then they start getting tender and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to put them on antibiotics because I think they're getting cellulitis. I think they're getting strep cellulitis or erysipelas. Well, it says here that in the past it has been used for erysipelas when the skin gets dark red. So maybe that could be, you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. If they're turning into an infected poison ivy, perhaps this would be the way to go. There was one I've never used, but it's very interesting, and it always comes up in these kind of poison ivy talks. In fact, it's in Dr. Kreisberg's book. Has anybody used Xerophyllum asphodaloides? It's made from this basket grass flower. I guess like in other countries they make they weave baskets with it. I guess the thing that I take away from this is it's so common. It's so similar to rus tox. Look at this. Their limbs feel stiff. Well, yes, rus has that. So it has rheumatological stuff. Xerophyllum is a very small remedy. And look at this. Anything in yellow, I put it similar to rus tox. Look at they're better with application of hot water, just like rus tox. Better with moving the affected part. The only thing is, so I'm like, well, how am I going to tell the difference between a small remedy, Xerophyllum, and rus tox? Supposedly, Xerophyllum is like definitely better in the morning, whereas I think of rus tox people being worse early in the morning upon arising, and then once they limber up, take a hot shower, then they get better. So I guess if they said I feel great in the morning, even when I wake up, but I don't know. In practice, Dr. Kreisberg in his book says you're going to use rus tox first, and if that doesn't work, try and find something else. But if nothing else, this is very similar to rus tox, so you might try that. But in general, he likes to do the big gun polycrest because he has such a better chance of treating. I wish he would publish his results because in the book, so as a reader, you're saying, so he says, in my experience, this and that. Well, how many cases have you seen and how many got better with rus tox and how many this? He didn't publish his results, but he said retrospectively in his busy practice where apparently he saw a lot of poison ivy at one time, he said that he and his office workers added up all his retrospective poison ivy cases, and he said that's where he got that list from. It wasn't just off the top of his head. He looked at his patients, and rus tox was the biggest group of successful people, followed by croton tig, followed by anacardium. So that's he's saying that it's based on his actual not experience, but the data that he had in his practice. Next time I see him at a meeting, we'll have to ask him to publish it. So let's summarize what we tried to talk about today. So I tried to present a case which was successfully treated for acute poison ivy dermatitis with a homeopathic remedy. And we talked about the importance of modalities, especially in this type of a case. That's something that modality is something that makes your symptoms better or worse. And the key point of the whole book was ask them what happens with hot water, how does it affect your itching. Now, of course, if it isn't better, you're going to go over different remedies. But if it is better, for me, I think of Rouge tox first and maybe anacardium second. And then the ones that are in the parentheses are the kind of lesser used remedies, which are also better. Itching is better with heat, or I put down possibly because xerophyllum, I couldn't find in any repertory or Materia Medica that the itch was particularly better, but for sure in the generals it said better with heat. So that's why I'm putting possibly in there. Rumex, Cephalinum, petroleum, silica, arsenicum album, Rouge renata, calisol. But so basically, if you're out somewhere, you don't have your electronic repertory and stuff, at least just think of the first top 5. So what are they? So at least according to Freisberg, Rouge tox is first. What's second? Croton is second. What's third? Anacardium. What's fourth? Sulfur. And what's fifth is graphites. So at least, you're out there on vacation or you're helping somebody away from your office. At least you have 5. It's like, okay, I know what those clinical scenarios are like. You might be able to find the right remedy like I did without even your computer. And with that, I'll just say thank you and ask for questions. Yes, Dr. Shepard.
There's a botanical problem. The different species are not, like there's no poison sumac here in the Midwest and no poison oak.
Sumac is in Michigan by wetlands.
So I haven't seen it or treated someone who said that they
Right.
So is it all the same species and just varieties? Because it's more of a parasite and it changes form even right here in the Midwest. You see all different appearances of poison ivy. So in the West Coast, it's more often called poison oak.
Exactly.
It's more often poison sumac. So the proving is what exactly species was proved.
Exactly. So Dr. Shepard just cuts to the point and he said, look, well, it's like, it could be like a plant, a taxonomical problem. I mean, what if, and see, that's the thing. When we buy things from Boiron, or we buy things from like Hahnemann in California, or we buy things from whoever, we're just assuming that the Rouge tox we get from one is made from the same exact plant as the other, and that the anacardium is really made from the marking nut and stuff like that. And even if it were, the trouble with homeopathy is, yeah, but what if the climate, like in Europe or in India, for growing anacardium is different than the stuff that grows in the botanical gardens here? But what if they're making falcon, and that falcon was treated benevolently, and this one was like abused? So that's one of the inherent problems with homeopathy that we'll probably never get over. But I mean, look at this. If you look up in Materia Medica Pura by Hahnemann, so the one remedy I didn't mention was Rouge radicans, because supposedly you can buy Rouge tox and Rouge radicans. So if you look at the very top, what does even Hahnemann says? Rouge, in parentheses, Rouge radicans, also called toxicodendron. Well, that's a problem right there. I mean, and what if, when I looked it up in J.H. Clark, I looked up, because if you look up Rouge tox, some of the Materia Medica say it's made from poison oak, and some Materia Medica say it's made from poison ivy. So if you look up in J.H. Clark, he said, if you're making it, you should make it from both, just to be on the safe side. And J.H. Clark says, and furthermore, I'm quoting, he says, I'm quoting Millspaugh, who apparently was the eminent poison ivy biologist of the time. And even this Millspaugh guy who studied it for his PhD or whatever, he found out that he's seen poison oak and poison ivy when he got it, like he trailed it back from out there into the stem that goes into the roots. He said, I've seen poison ivy leaves and poison oak leaves on the same rootstock. So he and many biologists believe that poison ivy and poison oak are just the same, except maybe in California, the climate or the moisture is a little bit different than out here, and it gets those oak-like indentations, and maybe here it doesn't. So even amongst as Dr. Shepard said, even the botanists don't really agree. So all we can do is to try and do the best we can. But I thought that was interesting what J.H. Clark said, and also some biologists think it's the same thing.
And the rust tox didn't work, and I did try to fill them a few times.
Oh.
But I can't get any guiding symptoms.
Yeah. So Dr. Shepard's point was that he did try xerophyllum a few times when the Rouge tox didn't work, but the problem is it's a small remedy. There's not much proven information on it. and you can't really hang your hat on anything really like, oh yeah, that's a xerophilin case, exactly. Well, that's the trouble with treating, when I first started out with homeopathy, I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna be able to cure everything with it. And then I went to my first meeting and everybody said, you're a dermatologist? And they said, oh, dermatology, skin conditions are the hardest things to treat. I'm like, oh, what am I getting myself into? I just paid my thousands of dollars for the tuition. And I'm like, what am I doing? But the point is, with dermatology conditions, they're very one-sided cases. At least like when you're treating somebody with dysmenorrhea or depression, there's many things you could really hang your hat on, many rubrics you could say, aha, it's got to be this for these 10 reasons. But with these one-sided cases, like, how's your sleep? Good. How's this? How's this? How's this? Oh yeah, I just have this mole. I don't have anything wrong with me. How's your sleep? How's any mental things? Or I just have like this rash that won't go away or whatever. So they're one-sided symptoms, and sometimes you got to do the best you can. But instead of having a three-legged stool, this was only like about the analogy about the three-legged stool. If you want the seat to stand, you got to have at least 3 symptoms. So I only had 1 to stand on for this. So it's kind of like being on a unicycle. I guess it was working. So thanks. We'll take a quick break while Dr. Fuhr is getting ready for his presentation. We'll just have snacks in the back. And just a reminder that the next meeting is Saturday, October 13. So to all your friends and colleagues.
Tim, go to setup. There's no way for me to see if I can't tell that there's no way that I can see if anybody has questions. I can only ask a question, but I can't see anybody else's.
I'll have to make you organizer.
Well, depending on.
Let me make you an organizer. You're just an attendee. Let me make you an organizer.
But I'm you also, so I don't.
So I have to make me, which is really you,
Because it says
an organizer.
Your screen, so you're kind of here twice. You're presenting and you're an attendee.
Now you should.
Where do I do that at? The sound on what?
I just muted you. See right here?
Yep.
Right here. You have to mute. You click on it, you left click on it, and then you hit mute.
Yeah, this brought it all up. Before I didn't have all of this. Like polls and questions and stuff, I didn't have this aspect.
Yeah, you see, and then the questions, there are questions here. You click on the tab and you can see questions.
Yeah,
If people, and then under attendees, you look,
Yeah, now I see it.
you can look and you can unmute people and see if they've asked a question. Mark Ketchin's there. Yeah, Mark and Elizabeth. Well, Amishi was there. Amishi too. And Jeff.
Yeah, well, I could see, before I could see attendees and I could see staff, and it said that me, because it says organizer me, under where it says Tim Fior, it says organizer me. The one that you did is like your computer up there, that's not me. But I don't know, I can see it now. So I'm not sure how it changed it, but it took me off of attendees and it added me to staff.
Okay, because I don't have my software.
Yeah, once you become a presenter or you become staff or organizer or panelist, you become staff. You should have the same view I have.
Yeah, but what I'm saying
is how mine says right here, me.
Yeah.
So before it said that it was right here
Attendees, right.
as an attendee.
With attendees, you don't get this extra functions. Yeah.
Right. But now it says organizer me. Is there a way that, I mean, I'm probably going to leave a little bit early because I need to be over in Jancy at 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, at 1 o'clock. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe for next time we can do something different. But
To do what? I think it's just the link that you click on, whether you come in as just a guest, basically attendee or staff.
okay, I don't know. I just followed the link that was in my email.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it was
unless-
probably you got an
unless
attendee link.
Unless they sent out.
I have to send you the panelist or the organizer link that I get.
Okay.
I get 2 different links.
Okay.
Actually, I get 3. I get a attendee link, I get a panelist link, and I get an organizer link. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
See, and Jeff controls that.
Yeah.
So remind me if it looks like if your email should say panelist or organizer. If it doesn't say that, send me an email and I'll send my email to you.
Excuse me, Dr. Fear, who are you talking to? I can also send the link, the panelist link.
Oh, you, Amisha, that's Leanne
Okay.
Wasson. So you can send her an organizer link.
I don't have the organizer link. I usually get the
Or
panelist and the
panelist.
attendee.
You have a panelist link. I see you signed in under panelist. You can send her a panelist link.
Okay. So for next time or
But you don't
all
need
the
to do it
times?
now, but for next time, yeah.
Okay, next time. Okay. I'll remember that.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I changed my last name. So my last name was the name that.
Yes, I was wrong.
All with you. So how does it feel now? When you go back?
So I changed it to Francis, just like my dad's name, and then my sister's name. So.
Is that what they said at graduation?
Yes.
Like, who is that? That's so funny.
So like I'm my first name is
Yeah. Oh, Michigan. Even now with this weather?
I
must have rolled on you.
And so I Sunday, like I bought what I wanted to on Saturday, so then I didn't go back. It's like, everything is like advertised for it.
I did it so long ago. I think I did like 2 or 3 days before, then I went to the lemonade fast. Yeah, the fast. Yeah, I started with water. Yeah, that's good. That's like stuff, right? And the lemon and doesn't that help? You know, I still get it about I think about you have a year and see how it goes. You know, there's just more. I thought about that the other day. There's something wrong with that, right? Everything becomes. I get my dog also.
Yeah.
I didn't know that she
Well,
that
they will. Oh.
My dog like ran over to the she had like I just like chill with her legs.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, they came back, like, my daughter was like, she's dying, like, it's her time, like, fine. And I'm like, oh, I hate this. I'm not going to let us come back.
Went from heroin to Naloxone.
I would have recognized it. Because I didn't realize the things that I was seeing were actually.
Oh, yeah, the
I
data.
didn't realize. You know, like, I didn't really. I just started like, oh, my God, that's. So I wasn't.
I don't know what you mean. I don't feel seated. To me, they have the energy of the mother war, you know, the earth, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it's normal. But everyone has unique side of it. Well, I know the point. I provide one remedy. Either is a medical director, you know. I don't think that's a doctor. Yeah. Whatever it is. You have a reference. He's like the medical director. Right. And she didn't have all the knowledge. Like, oh, you know, yeah. And for them to be such a big company, I think they could. Yeah. Yeah. Here's for the taking them. I just want to join her in a year or whatever. I've done 7 days twice before. I'm thinking I might go for 10. Really? I'm not sure that. I can hear that. So keep that without watercress seems intense, let alone. Yeah, but yeah, I love it. Oh, it's amazing. I'm one of those people that's like obsessed with green, and I'm always on my mind. For me to do it, it shows that I really feel like anybody can if they set their mind to it. So everybody's coming in. Yeah, I mean, the first time I did it, I did 3 days. We all see what happens. I felt so good in the third day. I was like, I'm just gonna do 6. So, but I did, yeah. And then nice recess. I tend to go into extreme, they'll eat like really awesome and not you know, stuff. Yeah, well, my real big is like 2 donuts and a bag of sour cream and Snickers and Twix and all in one sitting. I know that name. What is it? Oh, see, chips, salty, I don't care forever. All sweet.
But if it's like crunchy,
yeah, salty. Yeah,
It was floating around, I'm not sure where. Water.
That I said it on the 2 little boys in the
Mhm.
Oh, cool. That's what I thought when I saw the email. Cool. I was just curious.
Bam Bam, the one Bam
Yeah,
Bam.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. That's pretty awesome.
Hey.
Can I make a quick announcement before you start? Sure. Okay. Are you about to start?
This one's off, it's kind of his show, so I don't want to
he
on stage
knows.
the MC.
Yeah, it is.
Anything good can come from that.
Sure.
So at least they tell you.
And there's a potluck or something?
Oh, yeah, there is. I can mention that too.
They're gonna supplement shame. Lots of shaming going on.
What? Oh, this is a little presentation.
Or you will.
I'm still working on Ameliorates. 135 pages. Too many. Bob, is it all right if we?
I can just start talking.
Okay, I think that sounds good.
Good introduction, right? Okay, so this is slightly random, but I was given some packets from our reference librarian for all of the resources that our library has on spiritual therapies. So a lot of them are homeopathic books, as well as like meditation and yoga, African spiritualism, etc. There's also some online resources listed. So I know many of you do have access to our library here. I don't know what happens if you don't. But I'm just gonna leave these in the back if you want to pick up a copy or I can pass them around.
Yeah.
And then there's a few students on campus who are hosting a vegan potluck near the clinic right after this. It starts at 1 o'clock. If anybody wants to stop by. A lot of people will be cooking, and I know most of you are vegetarian.
So I'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
It's good to see so many people here. You know, we've been meeting here for I don't know how many years, and I think this IMHA study group is one of the best kept secrets on campus. But it looks like the secret has gotten out a little bit. So, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing. You know, it's interesting. Dr. Signori's talk was very good, and my talk I'm going to give is going to be talking about similar remedies, so it segues in. That was a nice lead into this talk. And it's interesting, in homeopathy, everywhere we look, like Dr. Shepard was mentioning with the different types of rust, that are they the same species, are they different species? There's a lot of issues and difficulties that we deal with in homeopathy. And then with our medicines, but then also with our patients. And this talk, I'm kind of trying to present and show that, you know, despite all the difficulties, we can still do really good work. And it's kind of like an attitude of, you see a case and you know, first of all, is this something that I can help? Is this a condition I can help with the experience that I have? And then if you know it is, you just got to be persistent and keep working at it despite all the deficiencies in the materia medica, despite all the problems, despite all the issues with patients and their compliance or lack of compliance. You have to find a way to make them better. So we're going to talk about eczema and steroid addiction. And eczema is one of those things in homeopathy that should be curable. In dermatology, I read an article once written by a dermatologist, and he said, we have a 4-letter word in dermatology, and it's cure. We don't cure things. We treat things, but we don't cure things. But in homeopathy, we actually see, and the experience has been for a couple hundred years, that there are certain things that are curable, and eczema is one of them. But is it easy? As Dr. Signori alluded to, treating an eczema patient can be easy, can be a bit hard, can be extremely difficult. And why is that? Because sometimes there's barriers to cure. What are the barriers to cure that can occur? Well, it's interesting. If you get a newborn, a baby has like infantile eczema or infantile acne, and they've never had any allopathic treatment. You give them a dose of sulfur or something like that, 200 D or something, it goes away. It's like, it's magical. If they've had no allopathic treatment. But once they start getting allopathic treatment, then it becomes more and more difficult. And why is that? Well, there's a condition called steroid addiction. Now, actually, Dr. Signori made me aware of this. In practice, we see when people are on steroids, topical steroids, but it can also be for oral steroids. If they're on prednisone, trying to get someone off of prednisone is not so easy sometimes. If they have an inflammatory condition, because when you go down on the dose, the disease just comes up. I always tell patients, you know, you can take steroids, but remember, steroids come with a symptom back guarantee. Because if you suppress something with steroids, the symptoms are always going to come back, always, at some point. It's a guarantee. But steroid addiction is a condition where actually when you use the steroids, if you try and get off, you get a withdrawal syndrome where the skin gets red and burns. It's not so much itching, it can be itching, but it's a burning and redness. And most people misinterpret that for being the eczema is getting worse. And so they give more steroids, which is exactly the wrong thing to do. And thanks to Dr. Signori, there's actually a very good dermatologist from the West Coast, I believe UCLA.
Marvin Rappaport. He's got a YouTube video. Marvin Rappaport, very well-known conventional dermatologist. You can see his YouTube video for 5 minutes. It's amazing.
I'm going to show you a 5-minute clip from him where he talks about this steroid addiction at the end of this case. So what are the barriers to cure and treating eczema? First thing can be steroids. So how do you get beyond that? And that's where the art of case management comes in. When I teach students, I always say, well, the hard thing when you first start off in homeopathy, how do you take a complete case? That seems difficult. But once you know all the symptoms you can ask, it's not so bad. And then the next difficulty is case analysis. We get all this information, you have 20 pages of notes. What do you do with it all? Well, you have to sort it down to a minimum syndrome of maximum value, the genius as we call it. And then you have to repertorize and look in the materia medica, like Bob was showing, and then you find the remedy. And then after a while, that gets easier. But then, case management. And this is something you never, it's like you're always learning. Dr. Shepard and I, we sometimes pass in the hall and we'll talk about a case, this case or that case. And it's like, God, I know I can help this person, but I just have to, you have to find a way. It's like you have to find a method to do it. You know, maybe you have to create something new. That's one of the beauties of homeopathy. It teaches you to be very creative. Because it's like you try one thing, you go this way, it doesn't work. You say, what the heck? Okay, so you try this and you try this. You keep until you get something that works. A big barrier is patient impatience. Patients should know that patients should be patient, right? Spelled a little differently, but unfortunately, a lot of patients are impatient. We live in a society where people want a quick fix. I mean, I can go to McDonald's and get a hamburger, probably kill me because I'm vegetarian, but in how many minutes does it take? Or I know you go to Taco Bell and they have this sign there and they have to serve you within so many seconds or they get dinged, you know? It's like we're used to this, everything happens. You watch TV, you watch a movie, the world's at threat and the White House has been taken over and within 60 minutes, everything resolves and they solve all the problems of the world. You know, it's like, but life isn't really like that, right? We're just kind of deluded into thinking it is. So there's different case management dilemmas. What about other medications the person's on? What about many other things? And with eczema, I can think of also another thing would be, let's say someone is very sensitive to dairy or very sensitive to nuts or very sensitive to some other food or environmental stimulus, very allergic. And if they keep getting exposed to it, their condition is going to keep flaring up. And it's kind of like, I use the analogy of putting out a wildfire. if you put out a wildfire, if you have a little fire in the yard and a little, and you kick a little bit of water and put on, it goes out. But if you have a wildfire, it's a little harder. You need, other, like a lot of firemen and maybe helicopters. But if there's a wind, you're not going to put it out. And this is, if we keep using these allergens and things like this, the person keeps getting exposed to things they're sensitive to and their skin keeps reacting, it's going to be very hard to put out that fire, that eczema. So these are the barriers I can think of. Bob, can you think of any other barriers with these kind of patients?
It's funny that you say that. The little guy that you're presenting today, his mother had a really bad case of atopic eczema, and I was treating it homeopathically. She was so itchy, like every 5 minutes she'd open up this jar and she'd leave all this stuff on her flaming red eczema. And I'm like, after about 15 times she did that, I said, so what's in the jar? She said, oh, it's just shea butter. It's really good natural moisturizer. I'm like, yeah, that's good. But and then she kept putting it on, she kept getting more and more itchy. I said, well, after a few visits, like, your homeopathic remedy wasn't working. So like, why don't you just stop the shea butter? She's like, no, it's the only thing that's moisturizing. I'm like, what if you're allergic to it? So she stopped it. Her eczema got like about maybe 50% better. So that was the barrier to cure. She stopped it, even though she thought I was nuts telling her that she was allergic to shea butter. But she was. So I think she was coconut oil or something now. Now she's fine. But there's nothing wrong with shea butter. It's just that she was at 1 in 1,000 allergic to it. So that's totally, that makes all the difference in the world.
And sometimes it's not like you can open a book and a book's going to tell you, this is the problem, this is the barrier. You have to be creative. You have to figure it out. I mean, that's kind of the difficulty with homeopathy. It's kind of the fun of it too. It's a bit like Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes, all the other inspectors, the body would be here and everyone else would be looking there and they can't, I don't know how to solve this case. And he'd be looking over here and find some clues over there. It's like, where did this come from? How did it, and he'd solve the case. So it's kind of like how we have to work. Yeah, Francine.
I was always impressed when Bob did that case. He had that nurse. She had eruptions in front of me, remember, on both sides, and we're all sitting here trying to figure out the remedy. And you just went ahead. What? I saw it. Right? And then you just said, guess what I did? It was like, oh, told her to stop wheat. It's just like an intuitive thing sometimes, and it was cleared up. It wasn't even a remedy. Stop wheat.
I thought you were talking about the lady that used the essential oil on her skin.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Same thing though.
Yeah, but it was like,
cure.
it was, I mean, to me, it seems so obvious, like,
Yeah,
sometimes it's just that simple.
Take away the big problems first.
So these things can all be barriers to care.
Well, that's everybody else.
To the
what
patient,
her, what-
yeah,
No,
for
I
sure.
know, I get that.
Yeah, for sure.
Any others anyone can think of? I mean, it's amazing with all these barriers that we are still able to help people. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, homeopathy is truly an amazing tool.
What about stress? Do you feel that's included in
Absolutely. Stress.
So that is a separate one.
Absolutely. You get, where I see this a lot is you get like, typically women coming in and they're in a bad relationship. And there's, their husband is abusive and this and that. And I used to think, God, I keep prescribing this remedy and I keep prescribing that remedy. I keep going up in potency. I must be a bad homeopath. And then I realized it's not me. It's them, that they're in a very stressful situation. And that's what's causing them to relapse. It's like you treat them, you give them a remedy, they do better, they get abused, they do worse. So you have to keep, it's back and forth. It's kind of like if you have a carpenter and he's all thumbs and he, using the hammer and he keeps hitting his thumb with the hammer. If he doesn't change his technique, he can come to you and you keep giving him arnica and, oh yeah, I feel better now. I took the arnica for 3 days, now I feel better. But I went back to work on Monday and bam, I hit it again. And what's wrong, doc? It's not getting better. Well, yeah, because you keep hitting your thumb with the hammer. You got to change something. You got to, instead of hammering like this, you got to hammer like this. You got to do something different. So it's the same sort of thing with stress. We have to, and sometimes with the patients, or like with the shea butter, patients aren't aware. They think what they're doing is good or the situation they're in is okay. You have to, it's like, you almost have to be intuitive, that's a good word, or it's more like intuition based on experience to be able to sort out what's the factor here that's not jiving that I need to change so that we can get past this barrier to cure. Any others? Yeah.
I had an interesting thing. It's still ongoing in the clinic. I had a mother come in with her baby. She had severe eruptions on her hands. I mean, her hands didn't look like normal skin. It was darkened. And the baby had eczema and patches all over. So she was nursing, and she was told by the students to not have dairy and to not have wheat. And it still wasn't helping either of them. And then gave her a remedy and told her not to give it to the baby, just to take it herself, and the baby got better. And she got better. But then she kept on taking it, and then she got tremendously worse. And when I switched to remedy, she got very much worse again. I said, look, we were doing your case as a side case for your baby. You need to come in. And now she was afraid. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't know what that dynamic between the mother needs a different remedy than the child, and nursing, and she's nursing. I'm going to have to wait and see what happens.
I find a lot, in my experience, now others have maybe other experience, but a lot of times the remedy the mom needs is the remedy the baby needs. Not always.
In this case, it did.
But many times. I don't know what percent. I'd say maybe 40, 50% of the time, maybe more. Joel, I don't know, or Dale, you have other comments or other experience?
Constitution is a similar remedy. Don't know.
But you have to remember Constitution. I mean, we use Constitution in kind of like, you know, it's like you're a patient, the silica guy who never took an allopathic drug, basically, and so with silica for 40 years. How many patients do we have that have the same, quote, Constitution? That doesn't happen very often. Most people will need a series of remedies over time. Yeah.
Well, there's all sorts of psychological overlays in practice. I read an article about the placebo response last night. So, you know, in homeopathy, placebo is safer than homeopathy, but as long, we're not doing research, we're practice. So there's nothing wrong with initiating the placebo response. But we know when you're in practice long enough that it's limited what it can do. Sooner or later, we have to choose the right remedy. But the same thing with psychology in general. There's nothing wrong with giving the patient hope, being positive that there's a chance for change. Nothing wrong with giving them permission that something's wrong in their life and they need to change it. You know, oftentimes they call us up, should I get the operation or not? Well, we have to do the same thing with their lifestyle. We have to direct them in lifestyle. How much Ahmed talks about that. Mode of living. We have to be a physician, whole doctor, not just.
So Dr. Shepard basically said, you know, placebo response is good. Sometimes we use placebo with homeopathy, but, you know, as a patient has positive expectations, but any homeopath knows the placebo response only gets you so far. At some point, you have to bring your craft in and find the right remedy for patients to get them better. And also to be a good physician, you have to look at, I think in naturopathy, you call them determinants of health. You have to look at all the determinants of health, you know, mental, emotional, societal, familial, as well as, you know, good food and all these determinants. So that's what makes homeopathy fun some days, because you're looking at all those things, and sometimes you see people and right away you can see it's like this person needs this, or this is the issue, this is why they're not getting better, you know. And sometimes they don't want to hear it. But oftentimes, if they're in a stressful situation, you treat them, they get stronger. I tell students this, that, you know, you have to realize that at some point they're going to get out of the relationship. So, potentially. So you have to be ready for that. What's that?
I said when they're ready.
When they're ready, right.
You have to be ready. You try to force them out.
Oh, no, you don't. I mean,
I'm just saying,
exactly.
if you try to force them through something,
Nope.
they're not ready for it. It's just re-traumatizing them.
Exactly. It's just making it worse instead of better. But the thing is, it's almost like you treat them and they get healthier to a point where they're able to do what they need to do to get better.
Do you find that giving an explanation, you know, I encourage an explanation in the clinic, that they have a canned explanation of what homeopathy is from the beginning? Do you find that it's helpful in patient management to explain from the beginning what we're trying to do? We're
Most people that, it's maybe different in the clinic. You see a different clientele there, maybe than we see in our office. Because usually when people find us in the office, maybe they've, like in this case, the person has already been using homeopathy. They know what homeopathy is. So we get patients that kind of, it's rare that we get a patient that doesn't know anything about homeopathy. But sometimes you have to explain to them the treatment process. And that's why I like my little follow-up sheet. I give it to patients, say, look, do this. The patients who actually do this one-page follow-up sheet says, you know, okay, what remedy did you take? Was there initial aggravation? What symptoms got better? What hasn't changed? What got worse? Any new symptoms? If you do this homework, you will get what I'm trying to do. Because if you come in and you say, you took the remedy a couple times, most things are better, nothing's worse, and there's no new symptoms. I look at that sheet, and in 20 seconds, or in 3 seconds, I know we're just going to continue the remedy as needed. You know, if I see nothing's better and a lot of new symptoms and a lot of things worse or not changed, I know, ooh, you know, I sit down and sweat starts breaking out. You realize you got to work a little harder. So, yeah, you know, I think the patients that understand homeopathy and if they participate in the process, that makes it better. But there's some, like this child couldn't participate in the process at all. So then the parent has to participate. So hopefully they have another person around them who can participate.
When you explain though, I mean, obviously it would have to be the parent, not the child in this case, but when you explain, that's true informed consent.
And how much does informed consent happen nowadays in medicine?
Oh God, it doesn't happen.
I'm just shocked, you know? I'm just shocked that, you know, it doesn't happen. They write it down on the chart, and I'll see the note that said, oh yeah, you're gonna have this procedure. And I had a patient recently, a colonoscopy, and you know, the doctor said, oh yeah, the risks are, you could have a perforation, you could have respiratory problems, you could end up with surgery, you could end up in the ICU, you could die. And it was all documented in case it ever went to court, right? And I asked the patient, well, did the doctor actually tell you that? No, the doctor never really told me. They didn't. I said, but they wrote down here that they told you. It's like, okay, well, and I actually kind of gave the person a copy of the chart. So you need to know, this is what the doctor said. Oh. Any other comments? Okay. So let's talk about this case. And this is not unusual. This is a case that, again, is a referral from another homeopath. I get a lot of these, or people switch homeopaths or something like that. So ZA, he's now about 18 months old. I first saw him a year ago in August of 17 when he was 5 months old. Chief complaint is eczema. Eczema started at 3 weeks old, which is a bit early, with rashes that began discharging on the face and in the skin folds. So face is always the worst here. You know, typical eczema distribution, the flexor areas here, back here, typical eczema, which is, where does psoriasis typically present? Opposite, the extensor surfaces, the knees and the elbows, okay? So referral from another homeopath. The remedies that had already been given were sulfur, calcarea, nitramur, and graphites, I think all in 30C. Tried, but no effect. What I see, sometimes what happens when people are new to homeopathy, they don't know what they're looking for. So you give them a remedy and probably there's some changes and they don't even notice it. It's like, you know, they're looking for the effect of steroids. You put steroid on a skin rash, although the last case didn't do anything, but usually you put steroid on an eczema and it'll get better, like pretty quickly, right? I mean, it's pretty, you can see there's a cause and effect there. With remedies, the effect is a little more subtle. It takes a while for patients to observe. But said, okay, no effect. Currently on Pulsatilla 30C, 2 pellets twice a day, and the face is less weepy. So she was starting to observe less weepy and red, but rash spreads to the hands and feet, which actually could be a good thing. If it's getting better on the face and moving down, that could be a good thing. Presently on Decenide, BID on the face, which I believe is a weak steroid, low potency. Okay. So Decenide twice a day on the face. She only put the steroid on the face. And we'll see that this ends up, in this case, being kind of a barrier to cure. Loves baths, but redder after. Bleeds on face after scratching. Thin, sticky discharge. You can think, okay, this is why the graphites was given. Here's the baby. Doesn't show up so well, but on the face you can see a little bit, but this is suppressed from the steroid. You can see a little redness here on the face. And the skin is all over kind of blotchy, kind of, these are the areas where the eczema is kind of, you can tell it's under the surface a bit. And the skin is dry all over. You can see some excoriations on the forehead, a little redness here, here. Eczema on the face is always hard to treat because, or any kind of skin condition on the face, because you can't hide it. It's like, if it's on your body or on your legs or arm, you can always, long sleeves and pants, but when it's on the face, it's hard.
The left and the right affected the skin?
I think it was always a little worse on the right. It's a little hard to see in this picture, but you can see a little more here on the right. Yeah, that's a good question. A little bit on the arm.
Same on the body too, more the right?
No, just on the face, I think. Just on the face. The back is affected. It's kind of the whole body. Babies had no shots, no immunizations. Only vitamin K at birth, which is interesting because the mom is a nurse. I can't remember what kind of nursing she did, but I think she was in the hospital, I believe. So it's interesting that she didn't immunize her child. At birth, the cord was wrapped around the neck, and there were some infiltrates. So it was in the NICU for 7 days and was on IV gentamicin and ampicillin. This is pretty common when babies come out and they're not sure they're septic. They put them on amp and gent for a week or so. Do you think that's responsible for the rash? I don't know, what has people's experience has been with that? Does that usually cause problems later down the road or not? What's that? No, I'm talking about the medication in the NICU, the antibiotics.
Whenever you do antibiotics, you worry about just disruption of the gut bacteria, and then obviously problems later on with food intolerance and atopic conditions.
But do you think there's an association with skin? Have you seen in practice associated with skin issues?
Yeah, I mean, if they
Can
don't
be.
have healthy
Okay.
gut.
Right, they're not gonna have healthy skin. It's very interesting. There's a book written by actually a graduate of National University. He's a chiropractor who's kind of an expert on treating psoriasis. Healing Psoriasis is a book. Any patient I have with psoriasis, I usually tell them to get this book. And he bases his treatments on Edgar Casey's recommendations. And it's interesting, he has a whole formulation of, his name is Pagano, Dr. Pagano, that basically psoriasis is a leaky gut kind of situation where the body has to get rid of the toxins as it does excretes them through the skin. And so unless you heal the gut, you're not going to heal the skin.
I think it's interesting just because you brought that up. I know somebody who has psoriasis really bad when he's in West Virginia, which is where he's from. But when he's in Michigan, he has no psoriasis.
Interesting.
So yeah, I completely correlate it to the food difference in that area.
Interesting. So, all right. So in this case, I don't think the amp and gent was really, ampicillin and gentamicin was really the cause of the more severe eczema, but we'll get to what I think it was. Mom received penicillin twice during labor and delivery. She had group B strep. Interestingly enough, he was born with one tooth, left lower incisor. It was actually erupted already at birth. I've never seen that before. How common does that happen? Nicole, you probably know.
Calling it a neonatal tooth that falls off? Or
No, he still has it. He still has it.
Really?
It was like a first tooth erupted at birth.
Because I've seen, they call them neonatal teeth that fall out and no big deal, but that would be really odd and interesting. And I would probably look for midline defects.
It could be a congenital, like there's other things going on too. Yeah, no, he seems all right. So that's an unusual thing. I don't know that we have any rubrics in the repertoire that we can find for that. So I don't know that we can use it homeopathically, but it's an interesting phenomenon here. Family history. His older brother has moist eczema on the neck to the waist. He had it. He was given three doses of DP DTaP, Hib, and pneumococcal shots. Eczema started after the 6-month shots. And then at 9 months, he developed severe autoimmune neutropenia. His ANC count went down to 40. A normal ANC count is more than 1,500. And ANC is a absolute neutrophil count. Neutrophils are what you need to fight off infections, especially bacterial infections. When you get chemotherapy, your ANC goes down. It kills those white blood cells. And it's interesting, in cancer, it's the neutrophils that surround the cancer cells and help the cancer cells to metastasize. So it's interesting, you can look at the blood test and see if the ANC count is too high relative to the lymphocytes. That's a bad prognostic sign in cancer, because it encourages it to metastasize. He was treated beginning at 10 months with calcarea by the other homeopath who referred him for 2 years, and the eczema cleared and the neutropenia improved, and actually the neutropenia is resolved now, just with calcarea carbonica. They went back to Lurie Children's and they said, yeah, you don't need to come back. And actually what do you think was the cause of the autoimmune neutropenia? Ashley says shots. Put up your hand if you think it was the shots. How would you know if those shots were associated with autoimmune neutropenia?
Give them another shot.
This is why the mom stopped immunizing. Here, she's a nurse. She's an allopathically trained nurse, and she stopped immunizing because of this. She didn't immunize this child, the one that we're treating here. You'd have to go through her and the husband first before you gave the kid a shot, and you have to take them out before you'd be able to give them a shot. So, I actually looked in the VAERS database, and there were instances with all 3 of these shots with autoimmune neutropenia. And actually, because of this case, I made my first report to the vaccine adverse event reporting system about autoimmune neutropenia in this case.
Have you cases that have been documented of this condition in children having had vaccinations?
Absolutely, and it's where I look at the VAERS database. And a good way to search the VAERS database, so everyone understand what VAERS is? No, okay, so in the 80s, the vaccine industry was getting sued a lot because of DPT shot. The whole pertussis, the old DPT shot, was causing a lot of neurologic injury. The drug companies were getting sued. They said, we're not going to develop vaccines anymore. They went to Congress and said, look, we're not developing vaccines anymore. We're losing money. We're making money on the vaccines. We're losing money on litigation with all these lawsuits. We're done. So Congress passed the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. And in that program, they said that we're going to take away all liability from the vaccine manufacturers. You can't get sued anymore. The doctors can't get sued anymore. And we're going to set up this database and collect data. And so since then, it's been collecting data on, which is a passive reporting system. If you see an adverse reaction, what you think, you report it. So the best, in my mind, the best place to look, I mean, you can look in PubMed and see if there's case reports. Probably you're not going to find them. Maybe you will. But VAERS is a better place to look. VAERS. And the best place to look for it, it's you can look at it through the CDC, but I think the best place I find to find the data is through the National Vaccine VAERS. But the best place to look for it is nvic.org, National Vaccine Information Center.org. They have a portal to the VAERS, which gives you like detailed case reports. It's amazing what you'll find there. I found it very useful in clinical practice when you're trying to sort out, could this be associated with that? And you have to understand, association is not causation, or what they say, correlation is not causation. But to determine, to nail down causation, you have to do a randomized controlled trial. Who's ever going to do that? It's never going to get done. So this is the best. What's that?
I'm just saying.
No, actually, that's another way you can determine causation, be more certain, is to reintroduce the thing and see if the same thing happens. But if you're a parent, you'd be, you know, it'd be bordering on abuse to allow that to happen, I would think. But, you know. Just science, right? Okay, so the child is warmer, perspires on after a nap on the back, okay with the sun. Sleep is restless, okay with covers. Appetite, still nurses, better with mom, dairy-free. So here's a case where that was one of the factors probably when the mom was on dairy and she was nursing, baby was worse. She stopped dairy and kept nursing, baby got better. So that was one of the barriers. So we got that out of the way. Well, this is the nice thing about being like a secondary referral. Probably they've already figured out a few of the problems. So the cases, when it comes to you, it's a little cleaner. There's a little less barriers, hopefully, there. He was smiling, he was happy. This is my original repetrization. Now, sulfur had already been given. He didn't have stinky sweat. It's a little sweaty, but calcarea had already been given. Natriuretic had already been given. Graphites had already been given. Not arsenicum. And what I decided to do first is start with lycopodium, probably because of this symptom and the fact of what Dr. Dunn noticed. The rash is maybe a little worse on the right side, and he was better riding in the car. Like when they take him in the car, he'd be better, which lycopodium does have. And it does have the perspiration, difficult smiling, cheerful. The skin was discharging yellow, worst 2 to 4 a.m. 2 to 4 a.m., you could think of arsenicum, although arsenicum would be more like 1, 2, 3 a.m.
So, if you did face eruptions right, on the side right, would we see lycopodium pop up?
Let's look. But we know lycopodium is right-sided.
Yeah.
Let's look. See, it's not a good, let's look under eczema. Eczema. See, it is under eczema, I'm sure. It's a 2, and there's no right, so it's not well represented in the repertoire. Yeah. But again, the point here is already a bunch of things have been tried. You got to try something else, and you know the management of this case is going to be everything. It's like, what do you tell the mom? How do you follow it? What do you look for? It's like that's going to be everything. So actually what I told her was to continue the pulsatilla 30 twice a day till there's no more change and then switch to lycopodium. Because I thought the pulsatilla was a good prescription because the weeping was getting less. Remember, it was getting better on the face and spreading to the hands and feet. It's going down, top down. That's a good sign. I said, well, when there's no more change, then switch to lycopodium 2 pellets twice a day. Watch the gas, the spitting up the milk, better in the car and the skin. And try to use the steroids on the face only. Oh, I guess at that point she was using steroids on the face and other parts of the body too. Trim the nails, cover the hands at night. I think she was already doing that. Dermatologist already told her to do that. I'm a big believer, whatever you put on your skin, you should be able to put in your mouth. Because when you put something on your skin, it's going to get absorbed. It's going to go into your system anyway. It's going to be in your blood. So I'm a big believer, and it's interesting, Pagano in his book, Healing Psoriasis, he talks about olive oil, other oils to put on, like cooking oils that you would put on your skin. So I said, use some olive oil. I learned from actually from a gynecologist that for different eruptions that are really dry, a good thing to use on the skin is Crisco. It's very greasy. But then I had a patient say, well, Crisco is made from like corn oil or something. It's not organic. There's probably glyphosate and other crap in there. So lately I've been telling patients to use Spectrum Natural Shortening. Get a little tub of it. You know, it's basically like a butter substitute or a Crisco substitute, and it's organic. So, and patients like it. And the thing about it is, it's so greasy. It's messy. It's very messy. It gets on your clothes, it gets on your hair, but it's very good at moisturizing and it stays a long time. And again, you could eat it. It's not going to hurt you. She was also using Camilla drops, which have or Chamomilla 30 when he was irritable. Because with the itching, you know, you get really irritable. So if you get hot or something, you get really irritable. So on 9/24, so he was taking the, in August, we put him on the lycopodium 30. Then on 9/24, he was using the chamomilla 30 as needed for restless, and he was teething a bit. And then on 8/31, this has got to be 17. This can't be 18. I'm sorry. On 8/31, I told her to start, so at the end of the first month, I told her to start, like we have to wean him off the steroids. Because you give a remedy, it's going to tend to bring it out. You put the steroids, it tends to suppress the eruption. So you have this, it's like you're never going to get anywhere. You're going to take one step forward, you're going to take one step back. You're going to take one step, 2 steps forward, you're going to take 1.5 steps. It's like, how are you going to make progress? It's hard. So I said, start in an effort to wean it. I said, just stop one side once a week. So I said, look, he's getting 14 doses of steroids. 1, 2, 1 day, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 7 days, that's 14 doses. I said, just stop one dose. And I think on the left cheek, because the right cheek was worse, so it's like, keep it on the right cheek, 1 day, skip the left cheek, and do it 1 day a week. And then start gradually dropping out doses, okay? I don't know where I come up with this stuff, but it seems to work. Weaning, this is the thing, weaning off meds, you have to be creative. You have to, and the patient has to work with you. And you give them an idea of what you're trying to do, and then after a while they'll figure it out. They'll go, oh yeah, I do that every other day, and I do this. You know, it's like you want to give them some latitude, like a range of things that they can do. This is October. You can see now the skin is getting a little worse because of the steroid wean, and now the face is kind of, you can see the patch here, but not oozing yet. It looks a little worse on the left, although we don't see the right so well. December, we switched to calcarb 30 as needed for teething, but I think we continued the lycopodium. Or actually, no, we switched to calcarb from lycopodium. And he was itching on the head a lot, itching on the scalp on waking is a big calcareous symptom. Then he had a fever in December. We switched to belladonna 30 as needed. By January of 2018, he was on 11 doses of steroids a week. So he was down 3 doses. Okay, and I think mainly he was skipping, mom was skipping the left side and was doing it more on the right. By February, still lycopodium 30 twice a day. And if the skin would get moist, you worry about infection there. I said use calendula, and that seemed to help, calendula 30. We think of calendula topical, but actually oral calendula is very good for skin issues, infections, things like that as well, I found. So here was him in February, and you can see the right is still worse. Left, not so bad. February 12th, he started getting hives. So we switched to pulsatilla 30, because I think it was after food, hives after some food he ate. Then 2/13/18, we did Rustox 30C as needed for hives. See, I'm trying to find a way. It's like, how can we keep weaning and help him keep getting better? By 2/13 also, he was down to 10 doses of steroids a week. So it's been already from August, 6 months, and we've gone down only by, out of 14 doses, of 4. So it's like very slow wean. On 3/8/18, because of the hives, so that it seems like the Rustox pulsatilla not doing so much, not helping so much, we switched to Urtica urens 30C for the itching and the hives, which helped more. Now, Urtica is stinging nettle. If you've ever been in the woods and you get stinging nettle, it's nasty. But actually, you can use it on different areas if you have pain or discomfort, and it creates an inflammation, and then it can heal things too. In his case, I found it was very good for the itching, and I mean, in the books, there's some modalities. What are the modalities for Urtica? I don't even really know.
Shellfish.
So worse from shellfish? See, the kid wasn't eating shellfish or wasn't exercising, so but it was just a case of itching, and like other things weren't working, and I tried Urtica and it really worked. So it's almost like something you try when nothing else works, and a lot of itching.
It's also improved compared to APHIS. So APHIS, like red, pink edema, improved with cold, Urtica urens, same symptoms, but improved with
heat. That's how I differentiate.
He was worse with heat, not better with heat. So but it worked. So it's sort of like one of those, yeah. So this is May of this year. He can't go below 5 doses. He's gone from 10, now he's down to 5 doses. It took him a few more months to get down to 5 doses per week of this Desanide. And he went 2 days without steroids. And he's using, again, more on the right side because it's worse on the right side. And went to the allergist. They did some allergy testing, and they told him to avoid certain allergens. He's allergic to tree nuts and a few other things. It was very traumatic for him. When he came into the office, you could tell he was traumatized. He was like screaming more and didn't want me to touch him, didn't want me to examine him. And the allergist was very worried about his low weight. He was still using the Lycopodium 30 twice a day, waking up happy, but still itching. If too much, then Calcarb 30 2 to 3 times a week. So they'd add that in. I find when you're trying to wean, sometimes you have to use several different remedies. So when this happens, use this. If this thing isn't working, you try that. You give patient options so they feel they have options. And they were still using Atarax or Benadryl 2 or 3 times a week. That helps knock them out so they can sleep. Itching was worse 2 to 3 a.m. till 5 a.m. So the itching was worse at night. Had the hives. Dry and itching face. And this is kind of why I'm presenting this case. It's an interesting remedy choice that came up. So the itching was, when I noticed in the office, he was itching face, but also mainly the neck. He was itching his neck a lot, like here. He'd itch here, and then he'd itch here. His wrists and his neck, even though the rash was in other places. And then sometimes down here. Dry and itching face, neck were the main, and then chest, groin, knees, wrists. So wrists and neck were the 2 big ones. And down below, the hands was a bit lichenified, the thickening, like the elephant skin a bit, and also around the ankles. Yeah.
Getting back to the, so was it the, you were using an intercurrent remedy? You were using, go back a slide. It was calcarea.
Calcarea, yeah.
So you were using Lycopodium consistent with BID?
Sometimes I'd go off of it, but the mom always liked to go back to it because it seemed like when he was on the Lycopodium twice a day, he did better. But we weren't able to totally wean him off the steroids.
And then just Cal, PRN?
Yep. If she gave the Lycopodium, it didn't work, then she'd give the Calcarea. And the Calcarea, I believe, has a symptom. Itching, scalp. Something about the itching of the scalp. At night, on waking, night on waking, and he had that. The first thing he'd wake up at night and he'd itch his scalp. So that made me think of the Calcarea. That's why I prescribed the Calcarea, because of that symptom right there.
Your mom's a pretty good reporter.
Yeah, she's a nurse. She's a good observer. If you have a patient, like a case like this, and the mom is not a good reporter, because the kid can't tell you anything. The kid is, you come close to the kid. At this point now, because after the allergist, you come close to the kid, and the kid goes, ah, screaming. Doesn't tell you anything, and it's like, he gets freaked out by the doctor. So, yeah, if you don't have a good reporter in the family, it becomes maybe, it goes from maybe incurable, not to curable. Then I got a little more family history that I hadn't had before. The mom had weepy eczema after her first son's pregnancy, and she was on Desanide during his pregnancy. She was on topical steroids during his pregnancy. So what do you think about that?
So suppression, bad effects of suppression during pregnancy? Or
Yes. And I think in my mind, a little red light went off. I was like, That's why we're having such a hard time weaning this kid. I mean, he had a little bit of something, the steroids changed something that made him very, like, his adrenals really like needed the steroids. Like, it was very hard to wean him off because he'd been exposed to steroids during pregnancy, the topical steroids of the mom. So that was a barrier, another barrier, the prenatal steroids, another barrier, potentially in this case. So we weren't able to get beyond 5 doses a week. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doses a week of the steroids. We weren't able to get beyond that. So I'm looking for another remedy. This is what we do in these difficult cases. Like what? And I noticed the thing that really got me was the itching here and here. So I did a reference work search. I looked in the repertoire, I repertorized, the usual suspects came up. But I did a reference work search and I started looking through remedies that had itching on the wrists and neck. And I found this remedy. You want me to show you how I did the search?
Yeah.
Does that be helpful for you? Let me go back. Go back one. Itching wrists and neck. So here I've got a symptom that, so I'm in reference works, itching in the same sentence as wrist in the same sentence. I just keep hitting the space bar because it goes, within a few words, whatever, and then it goes sentence, paragraph, whatever. Itching within the same sentence as wrist, within the same sentence as neck, and search. And there are 46 remedies. And so I'm just looking through, taking my time. Of course, Rust Tox comes up. And then I saw this remedy, Rust Venata. And Rust Tox, remember, we'd already given Rust Tox. And Rust Tox, the question is Rust Tox different than Rust Venata? Is it the same species? Is it different? Right now, I think the botanists say they're separate. But Rust Tox and Rust radicans supposedly are the same. It's interesting, in the Dunham kit, there are 2 separate remedies. But I came across this remedy. Just go on the forearm, wrist, back of the hands. Itching intolerable, especially in the evening, itching of the arms. At night, much itching on the face and sexual organs. Left cheek, it's like eruption on the back. And let's go back. From Allen's Encyclopedia, here's the Materia Medica. At night, much itching on the face and sexual organs. Remember, he itched here, 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 and the groin area. Whole face, so burning hot. Face is very dry and rough, definitely had that. Scurfy appearance. Thickened and indurated, he had that, lichenification. Eruptions on the face, head, and chest. And then this was the thing that really got me, the 2 a.m. That was, after midnight. At 2 a.m., severe itching of the hands, particularly between the fingers. Okay. So I said, here's a remedy. I've never prescribed it before. But it has a nighttime itching, it has a location. Let me show you the repertorization. In the repertory, if you look under itching of the wrist, Rust Venata is there. And this is actually how I came to think of it, is I looked in those 2 areas, itching of the wrist and itching of the throat, and it was in both. And then eczema, that was the only thing. In the repertorization, it was quite far down, but it covered the location of the itching. And so, as Dr. Signori mentioned, Rust Venata is, looks like this. It's poison sumac. Oops. This is how poison ivy looks. Leaves of 3, let them be, right? See it around here a lot, especially out in the woods. Poison oak with the same kind of leaves of 3, but more notchy, like an oak. And then poison sumac is more of the, it's got more of the leaves. But I guess it's at the end, it still has the leaves of 3, but it's more of a opposite leaves. I found this on Whole Health Now. Will Taylor did looking at the rust species. Basically, rust tox, it's not called rust toxicodendron in botanical circles anymore. It's called toxicodendron radicans. And basically, he said, rust tox and rust radicans are considered to be the same. It's eastern poison ivy. And rust V is now called Toxicodendron vernix. It's eastern poison sumac. And then Diversiloba is the Pacific poison oak. And actually, if you look in the homeopathic materia medica, let's look under remedies. There's a bunch of russes. Aromatica, Diversiloba, glabra. This is the smooth one, I guess doesn't have hairs. Radicans, Toxicodendron, venenata. I mean, does anyone have any experience using any of these others? I mean, they're there, but I mean, rust tox is the one by and large, it's like we use a lot, and the others, like we rarely use. This is the first time I've ever used rust venenata in a patient. Let's get back to our presentation. That's a good question. Let's look at rust venenata, Allen's Encyclopedia, mind, sadness, no desire to live, gloomy, low-spirited, peevish, fretful, apprehensive, restless, no disposition to move about. So kind of an apathy. Yeah. Absence of mind. Where? Sounds cheerful. Very good. Good eye. Good eye, Lisa. Good eye. Good eye, Dr. Krebs. Okay, yeah, so, but I didn't prescribe based on the mental state. It was just totally the location of the itching. Again, it's like you're trying to find a way. It's like this kid you hit a barrier. It's like, how do you get beyond that? It's like, I tried this, I tried this, I tried rust tox, I tried this, I tried that, tried all these other remedies. It's like, how do you get beyond that? And the rust venenata worked well. My point here is not so much to teach rust venenata as to show you that when you know something is curable, you keep at it. You keep following your leads and see where it takes you until you get past that blockage. That's really the point. So rust venenata, I only had a 9C, or she had a rust. No, I had in the office we only had 9C. Twice a day, and then she got a 30C and took it once a day. And she was able to wean out the steroids within the next month. It had taken her to get down to 5 doses. It had taken her close to a year, and within a month, she was able to go down to the last third. And the last dose of steroids was still 6, 17, 18. And interesting, off the steroids, he grew taller. Immediately grew taller. He like lengthened. I know there was talk of the steroid inhalers causing growth inhibition. In practice, I've seen it, but I think they say, oh, no, it doesn't. What about topical steroids? Is there anything in the literature about topical steroids causing impaired growth? Is there anything or any clinical experience with that anyone has? Systemic steroids for sure, but it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, you can understand the mechanism.
There are studies that steroids cause growth reduction, but it's within acceptable limits. That's the good point.
Yeah, because it seems like that was an issue for a while, and then they kind of poo-pooed it and said, no, it's not an issue. So this is him around that time. You can see the quality. What's that? About 18 months now. He's crying a little. I think this is after the allergist treatment, so he's still like, a little freaked out by me. So when kids are like this, I just hands off. I just look at them and I don't try not to touch them or anything because I know they're just gonna wail. The quality of the skin's a little better, quite a bit better. And the face, look at the face, is almost normal. Like if you looked at this kid, you wouldn't think he had eczema anymore. It's more uniform. The color is not so blotchy like it was before. And the antecubital is very good. So we continued in May, we continued to Rustven 30. In July, he'd already been off the steroid for a couple months. I was brave enough to go to sulfur because it was very dry, worse with warmth. At this point, maybe worse with bathing. I gave a 30C, 1 pellet in 6 ounces of water. I stirred it 30 times. And I did something I learned with Dr. Sane. I knew he was going to aggravate. So I took a toothpick and I stuck it in and touched it to his tongue. And the skin was drier for 2 days. And the cheeks were a little more red for a week. So we went back to the Rustvenata. But he went down to only having 1 bad itching episode a week. It had been more than that. The mom called them itching attacks or itching, like he started itching and, you know, you get into itching and you just keep itching and itching and you get, it's like, like an itching spell or something she called it. Legs darker and flakier, smoother. Was able to skip Atarax a couple times, which was good. 824 off the typical steroids for greater than 2 months. Molars were coming in. Again, we repeated the sulfur, 1 toothpick from the water before bed. After the sulfur, he didn't itch with his bath, which was unusual. So that's a good sign. The sulfur is acting positively now. He's skipping 2 doses of Atarax a week. Still hot, cautious. And so we continued the sulfur 30 toothpick in 8 ounces up to every night as needed for itch. And now he's off the steroids, we're trying to get him off the Atarax. And this is 824. Now at least he's not crying. He's a little more resigned. It's like, oh, I gotta go see this doctor. I might as well just. But the trunk is good. The legs are still bad, but I'm not worried. It's like up here is good. The face is good. It's kind of moving down. We're headed in the right direction. And the poor mom, she's been through hell with this kid. I mean, I think at this visit or one of these visits, she started breaking down and crying because it's like the stress is relieved, you know, like, you know, the kid's doing better. It's like a lot of the moms dealing with kids like this, or if they have other serious ailments, they end up with post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, totally post-traumatic stress disorder. And you can see there's still some lichenification of the skin at the ankles. Behind here, the popliteal is not so bad. So let's have a little visit with Marvin, who Dr. Signori introduced me to online. So this is a dermatologist from UCLA who talks about steroid addiction.
Her body was covered.
There we go.
She's a rough in red.
Alexandra is 4.
Her body was covered in red.
When I can't see, I hear.
Ethan is 10. The night before we shot,
Yes, I look, Mom, I've got blood check.
when Ethan's skin isn't itching,
It's burning now, it's burning me, it's burning.
So far.
dermatologist Marvin Rappaport specializes in rashes. This stack of mail, letters from patients of all ages from all over the world,
Oh, suffering.
all desperate for an end to their burning and itching.
I've seen. I've had 6, 8, 9 people who are suicidal. It is that horrific. And I'm not glibly using the word suicidal. Yes, they were going to kill themselves. Yeah.
It was difficult to show myself to the public.
Fitza Nemes is a physician herself, but she had a heck of a time getting an accurate diagnosis. Doctor after doctor.
So this was a non-specific inflammation of the skin. It means nothing.
Dr. Rappaport has come up with his own label for patients like Fitza, Alexandra, and Ethan.
I'm dealing with red skin syndrome.
With red skin syndrome, patients always ask,
How did it happen? And why did I get it?
Dr. Rappaport believes these rashes that don't clear and itching that transforms into burning are caused by the very medicines doctors often use to treat them, steroids.
I've used the word whistleblower, and I hope it's not inappropriate.
Steroid creams are the mainstay of treatment for red, itchy skin, but Dr. Rappaport says in some patients, instead of curing, steroids seem to create dependence.
They need more and more and more. That's they're addicted.
And when creams stop working, patients often turn to
The pills, the shots, and keep increasing, nothing really empty.
Dr. Rappaport's remedy for red skin syndrome.
The therapy is to stop the steroids. And then ultimately, as they get better, sunshine, 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 and sunshine.
Among dermatologists, Dr. Rappaport is certainly in the minority on this.
Don't report. I hate that when they bad about sun so much because the regulars of food, many diagnoses are better than
Dr. Rappaport says the more steroid exposure you have, the longer it takes for the skin to recover. He manages withdrawal by addressing the symptoms.
Gets you through the moment, for sleep, for pain, for itch, get pills for that.
Fitz has been off steroids for several years. Little Alexandra is still watching, but her dad says she's not scratching as much as before.
So we're really happy with the progress that she's made.
Ethan, who traveled from Maui to see Dr. Rappaport, has been off steroids since March. His skin isn't burning like it was before, and he still struggles with itchy, sleepless nights.
We understand and we know that he's got to get through this period of time to get better and back to normal.
Dr. Rappaport's promise, if he stays off the steroids and gets back to his surfing, eventually.
And then I can make a household. We'll go surfing.
So the key there is the sign of the steroid withdrawal, or she calls it red skin syndrome, is the burning. It's not so much itching, it's burning and redness. And if you think about it, how do they measure steroid potency? They put steroid on the skin and they look at how
the connection
between
incurable spreading eczema?
They look at how far around it causes vasoconstriction and whitening of the skin. They measure that distance and that determines skin potency. So it's topical steroids are very vasoconstrictive. But when you force the body to do one thing, what happens when you try and get off of it? Massive vasodilation, and this is where the redness and the burning comes from. And I actually tell my patients, when you're trying to work through this, you have to have especially if it's a kid and the parents have to be on board with you as you're going through this process. I show them this video. I say, look at this guy, look at this video. Here's a dermatologist at UCLA who's saying, you know, that's the treatment, get off the steroids. Because otherwise, you go to any other dermatologist, most, not all, and they're going to tell you, no, steroids, you need stronger steroids. That's the answer. We have a little time. Any questions? I have something else I can present to you. I'm going to talk about curable and incurable. Do you have any questions? We can talk, or we can do another quick case. Curable and incurable. Yeah. Okay.
I have a question about vaccination because I know it's a different class, but never well since vaccination is kind of But I've also heard of homeopathic vaccinating, and I think we allow it in the state of California, but I still don't understand what it is.
They don't allow it in the state of California.
Okay.
There's a person, Isaac Golden, who's come up with a schedule of giving homeopathic nosodes made from vaccines instead of vaccination, but that's not recognized by any state as sufficient for immunization. He's come up with kind of an alternative system. To me, you know, whether to vaccinate or not to vaccinate is a choice between the patient and the physician, the treating physician, I think. You have to look at the risks and benefits and, you know, that kind of thing. Like any other medical treatment, it's like, to me, it's kind of crazy. It's like there should be informed consent. You know, you should say, look, these are the benefits, these are the risks. Let's weigh and let's decide for this patient at this time, does it make sense or not? Unfortunately, the state gets involved, and in California now, Merck has lobbied very heavily, and they have gotten rid of the religious exemption in California. So basically, in California, you either homeschool or you send your kids to school and vaccinate. You don't have a choice. If you get a medical exemption, good luck. Bob Sears is a physician who wrote a book on kind of modifying the immunization schedule for kids who are at risk. And he's written medical exemptions and has very publicly had his license put on probation because of that. So find a physician in California who'll write a medical exemption. Good luck.
For homeschooling, you have to charter a school. Like you have to actually charter a school. You can't just say, oh, I'm homeschooling a kid. You have to charter a school.
So that's probably a legal process. You have to fill out documents. And, yeah. So, you know, so people are coming up with alternatives. They say, well, there's some issues with vaccines, so we have an alternative schedule. But he bases his schedule kind of on the standard schedule and then uses homeopathic remedies. But to say that the two are equivalent, to me, doesn't. Who knows? I mean, there's really not a lot of research on that. But I mean, who's going to do the research? I mean, on an also, how much money are you going to make? I mean, the vaccine manufacturers can do their research because when they sell it, and now they can force everyone kind of to take it, they make billions of dollars. I mean, last I heard, it's a $10 billion industry or something. It's billions. So we're talking billions of dollars worldwide. What's that?
They're not gonna put money into research where they're gonna end up.
No, it's if you're the CEO and you funded research like that, you lose your job in a heartbeat.
Just wondering, comment what you're bringing up, because since I've been against them personally, that we have a list of dosing, because you're giving a child all kinds of remedies, all mixed up, that they don't necessarily need or want, and what are we doing to provide a course? But that was on the theoretical. I recently had an adult patient come to me who decided to treat herself with no sodas for various illnesses. And she did that, I guess it's a couple of years ago, and she ended up having some kind of rash, itchy rash all over her body. Since she did the no soap experimenting on herself. And she did a lot of steroids and got rid of them, and they came back, and she had a lot of stress. So that's a little bit of a, maybe that's a good thing to think about, just taking no soaps for no good reason. In other words, you're not exposed to the disease.
And
It would be harmful.
when you're prescribing a no-sod, you're usually prescribing it based on some theoretical etiologic factor or something you want to prevent. It's not really homeopathic, because to do it homeopathically means it has to be based on the symptoms, similarity, some degree of symptom similarity. And you're just totally just randomly giving people things based on a theoretical, not based on a symptom that the patient has. So yeah, in a case you can get approving or they can react to it. That's not necessarily a healthy reaction.
No, she was not happy.
Yeah.
And she said, I did it to myself. I don't know what she was thinking, but there's this idea that homeopathy is harmless, but that's not true. You can take a remedy, a not well indicated remedy, and start proving it or have reactions like this and cover some store.
What we do sometimes is in the office is when people, like, they don't want to take the flu shot. They've had the discussion with their primary doctor and they decide they don't want to get it. Maybe they've had a bad reaction in the past. We give them influenza. And most people do pretty well with that. But I use a 30C. I've had some patients take a 200C influenza and have a very strong reaction, negative reaction. When they're well, they take it and they get really sick. They get like really bad flu symptoms, like proving it. So I usually stay low. Another time we use it maybe is if there's pertussis going around the house or a pertussis-like illness. I've used pertussinum. It seems to work really well when you have that retching cough, and retching, gagging cough, and you try all these different things. And anyone who's treated pertussis, no, it's very difficult. I mean, that cough goes on. They call it the 100-day cough. It just goes on and on and on. So then an also can be very useful. And if you have other family members exposed, whether they take antibiotics or not, you can still give them like pertussinum as prevention. I found that's useful. But to just kind of use the allopathic schedule and then come up with a homeopathic schedule, I know there are people who do it. I've had patients even who come in and they say, oh, I want to do this with my kid. I'm like, okay, go ahead. I'm not recommending it, but but the stories are, oh yeah, the kid does it and they're healthier than this or that. Well, when you treat a child homeopathically over time and you're finding good remedies and their symptoms are changing, the child gets healthier. They get less colds, less flus, their eczema gets better, their asthma gets better, their mood gets better. And they get to be really well-adjusted kids over time. So if you think you can do better than that by using that, I mean, I don't have experience with it, maybe, but I mean, the way we do homeopathy by matching symptoms and stuff and using the repertory, that works. We know that. We've been doing it for 250 years now, and it works great. So I think the burden is on the people saying that. They say, well, give me some data that this works better. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but I can see the need. I think people in this country, it's amazing. I think I read somewhere that 20% of parents now are opting out of some immunizations that are required or modifying the schedule. 20%. I don't know, in your practice, maybe it's like a lot of parents are questioning things now more than they ever did. What's that?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think we probably need a larger population because hearing a lot more wanting a delayed schedule.
But you know, what's happening is Merck doesn't like this because that's money out of their pocket. Merck is the #1 manufacturer of mandated vaccines for children. And so they're the ones lobbying. They're going around all the different states and lobbying, giving the legislators money and saying, here, our lawyers came up with this bill, pass this bill in your state to get rid of vaccine exemptions. They don't want people to have a choice. To me, that's not bad medicine. Why don't we just, you know, why don't the general surgeons get together and just mandate that everyone get an appendectomy so people don't get appendicitis? I mean, it's kind of, to me, it's the same sort of thing. It's like, that's nuts. But, you know, it's like, there's always a risk and benefit. Because let's face it, immunizations have risks. People die. People get adverse reactions. Look at the VAERS database. You see thousands, not 600,000, 635,000 reports of adverse reactions. And probably the real number is much higher. We don't know what the real number is. So it's like, it should be the patient and the doctor talking, deciding. It shouldn't be a drug company, because they make billions of dollars, they can force people to do things. It's just, it's not a good model in my mind. But yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Tim, I had a question. It has actually to do with nosodes. I just wonder if I could just ask the audience, because I had a patient who, I guess, her acupuncturist was treating her for fibromyalgia, and her acupuncturist said, well, go to a homeopath and ask him to prescribe a homeopathic nosode for Epstein-Barr virus, and maybe that'll help your the fibromyalgia. So, of course, as a dermatologist, I don't have any experience with that. So, the question to you guys in the audience is, does anybody have experience with treating fibromyalgia with homeopathic constitutional treatment and or nosodes?
We treat a lot of people with fibromyalgia, and it's just the usual approach works best. You find their symptoms, and they usually have other complaints too, and you find a good chronic remedy for them, and their fibromyalgia improves.
But what about specifically, because I guess the acupuncturist idea is, well, okay, if it's caused by a weird reaction to Epstein-Barr virus, why not just give the 200 nosode once a month and, you know, simple cookbook? Has anybody done that? And does it work?
More like that.
Yeah. So I mean, has
You know, the problem with that, Bob, I think, who's been exposed to mono? Everyone. If you check antibodies, Epstein-Barr, everyone has them. Healthy, people with fibromyalgia, people without. It's like, everyone's got it. So I don't think that approach would work very well. But I could be wrong. I mean, I've never tried it. I haven't really used it. But in homeopathy, if I've learned one thing, it's that if you don't individualize, your success rate's going to go down. You might still get some hits, you know, but your success rate's going to go down.
Yeah, that was my feeling. I was just wondering if anybody ever did that.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that I need to go, and the only attendees aren't attendees, they're staff.
Okay.
Do we want to let people know about Kim's?
Oh yeah, so Kim Aaliyah is coming next week.
He's coming on Friday, and then.
But he's going to actually give a lecture here on Saturday. So Francine, why don't you talk? You know more about it than anyone.
I don't know that much more about it. He's set up to do, Kim Aaliyah helped Dr. Smith get the program for the students.
Here, why don't you come up here so that online they can hear you.
Okay. Dr. Kim Aaliyah, does everybody know who Kim Aaliyah is? Okay. He was working with Dr. Smith to get a student version of the repertory. It's now mandatory for all the students once they start homeopathy 3 and 4. A version, it's $395 for 3 years.
$350.
It's $350? Okay, it's $350.
If you don't get the discount, it's $399 for 2 years.
Yeah, if they put it in, there's a code they can put in when they order it. But they only have access to Murphy's, right? To
Murphy's and Kent's.
Murphy's and Kent's repertory. So they still have that political issue that's going on with what the people that have had McRep a long time are used to using, that can download Andre's changes. That was originally from 4.5. Yeah, that Andre originally changed, and then they don't give the students the book anymore. They took it off the market, so they can't get it. But Andre also has, this is just an aside, he also has from the Mater Medica Pure project, a separate, is that a repertory that they use? It's a separate book that the students can also download and use for the changes that came in through the Mater Medica Pure project.
And that they get for free.
And that they get for
Signs up
free.
even for the Academy Edition, the new version of the Academy Edition, they will get it free.
Yeah, so students have the Academy Edition. If you have McRep, you can get that book for free too. Just go down
And
to
here,
Synergy.
I can show you what it looks like. If anyone's interested. I have that, actually, Andre's new repertory. Here, MMPP, it's just like another book.
Yeah,
It's not very complete because it's just the editions, like 20,000 editions. But if you use it with Kent's repertory or with Murphy's, you'll basically have the same repertory that the professors use here.
Yeah, but it's not, you have to make the effort to go between both books when you're doing the rubric and then combining it. You can combine the rubrics, but it's not combined for you. At some point, hopefully there'll be another total book that will be in effect. Okay, so for Kim, I think it's between, what is it, 10 and 3? You have the email. I don't know if you have the email. It's between, he's going to be doing a talk for the students and faculty, and it seems like Fraser didn't let everybody know because he didn't know that Kim would want to just tell people they can come for free, but they can come for free. So you can come for free, either on Saturday and or this Sunday, and I think it's from 10 to 3, and I don't remember the room.
Yeah, I don't know which room. Does anyone know which room?
I can look at the email.
Do you know which room? Ashley, do you know which room?
Okay, this is the thing we needed to find out in order to tell you guys, because some people, I mean, you already know how to use your repertory, but he's going to go. He's a very good speaker, and I think he'll put it together so that we'll go from people who are just learning to use it in the basics to people who want to do a little bit more in depth and searching and it would be a good, even for people who think you know how to use the repertory, sometimes there's things we're still learning that you might want to go to that. I know for me, I don't know how to use Murphy's all that well. I mean, I can get through, but I tend to use Murphy. So you're going to say, Ken?
I think he's doing how to use the repertory one day.
That's Saturday.
And then, yes, so Saturday is how to use the repertory. And I think how to coordinate with reference works. And then on Sunday, we'll be doing some cases. So he usually has very interesting cases. A lot of times he'll have a small remedy, but I can't swear to that. For the people that are in homeopathy, we recorded. You're there. He's going to be on Monday. He's going to be taking an hour of your class and an hour of my class that we're graciously giving him because we have to teach so much stuff and manage to keep up with everything. He's going to come to the class and I guess we'll do a case or answer questions or teach people things they need to know. But this is your tool. This is good information. So
It's in
Jancy 140.
Oh, 140. So D140.
And is it 10? Is it 10 to 3?
It's 10 to 4 both days.
10 to 4 both days, so probably
10 to 4. Yeah.
There was like an email going around, sign up genius, so you can sign up.
I didn't see the sign-up sheet. I asked for somebody to send me a link to it.
Do you have it? Do you have the link? Send it to me and I can send it to IMHA people too in case anyone's interested.
Send me the link,
Yeah,
because I
we'll
didn't
send
see
it.
to register to go.
Okay, yeah, I'll
So I would imagine if you can't go a whole day, go a half day, get a chance to meet him, talk to him if you haven't met him. He's a very dynamic person.
Is it going to be broadcasted like through a webinar, or it's just in
I don't
class?
think so, Mishi. I don't think so. It's difficult. I know we did that last time Kim was here, and it's difficult teaching to a class that's there and also broadcasting a webinar. I don't. He wasn't in favor of doing it. We ended up doing it, but no, I don't. There's no plans to do that.
Okay. And what's the topic?
Well, the topic on Saturday would be how to use the repertory. The
Okay.
main topic, and the topic on Sunday would be cases and actually the experience of finding rubrics making cases, and he's probably going to have his cases that he did. I don't have a detailed itinerary, so I don't know exactly.
Yeah, we don't know if there's a specific area or specific remedy
I
he's
mean, I'll
going
be
to do.
glad to,
We just
if
don't
I
know that.
find out, yeah, if I find out more, I'll let you know, but
And it's not listed in the email that you found, actually. is it?
actually, we're going to be talking to Kim at 1:30. We're going to do a phone consult with him, so if you do have specific questions, give it to us right now, just write it down, just give it to us so you can ask him for that. If you have specific questions or what you can do. I was kind of hoping that, we could do this on speakers somehow, so we can, I don't know, we can conference quarter speakerphone, what he's planning to do. But he didn't send out a flyer. This is what I'm doing Saturday, and this is what I'm doing.
Oh, no, okay. But thank you, no problem. I will probably look out for some lectures here, but it's difficult. No.
Yeah, and probably, Amishi, if you have a group of people there who are interested, I mean, I'm sure Kim would, he goes all over the world,
Yes, actually there is he has actually lectured. I used to be with the Homeopathic Association of the Pacific. I'm no longer with them, but they used to invite him, and I still think that they do. I think they still do. And he has a few lectures around here. He goes sometimes to UC Berkeley. They have a study group as well, but it's 1.5 hour to 2 hours drive for me over the weekends. But I'll keep an eye, if I can go sometime.
Okay, this is free. I don't know if he's invited in a different circumstance. So this whole thing on Saturday and this whole thing on Sunday is free. Free students, so, I mean, this is a very nice thing to have access to, him to come. I think there's a give and take here because if the students use this program early on, as more things become available, they'll give them discounts and things to buy the version that you want to practice with Adjuvant. So it's good to have. Any questions? I think that's it.
Yeah, Kim's a great speaker. We've had him here a few times, and he always gives good lectures, very entertaining and very concise, and it's good to see. And he knows McRepertory, he knows the computer programs. He used to be the radar rep, and now he does McRepertory. So if you want to know about, actually, he's a good person to ask if you want to know about different programs. He's the guy because he's worked on different platforms, and he's traveled around the world, so he knows the status of homeopathy in all different countries and different states and at different naturopathic colleges too. So he's very knowledgeable. Anything we want to say in closing? So we have our October meeting, October 13th, I think.
Saturday, October 13th, 10 a.m. right here. That's the second weekend, usually it's the third, but because of the AIH meeting, I think it is now, we have the second. So October 13th.
And we'll have our IHMA meeting after it.
Annual meeting.
Yeah. We're still looking at ways to get students more involved with the organization, so I have a few ideas. And students are certainly welcome to come and participate too.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're done. Amishi, I'm going to turn off the webinar now. So.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor.
All right, good having you.
Bye, Mishi.
Bye. Bye.
Good job, Tim. Excellent.
Started phase 2.